what scares me the most is it when it happens. When it comes over me and I totally lose control. I like it.
Hello and welcome to Comic Book Movie Oblivion, the podcast about feature films based on comic books and comic strips that people have stopped talking about. We're your hosts, Jordan and Kumar, that's me.
And me.
And this week we are talking about Hulk from 2003. It's unusual for us to do two big budget Marvel movies in a row.
That's true.
But Peter Allen David passed away just a couple of weeks ago.
Vale.
So I was like, well, half the time these episodes are done so I can dig out certain comics. I don't really care about the movies. I'm just like, I want to read these comics again.
Sure.
And it was an excuse to read some Peter David comics.
And the other half of the time, it's hasty necrocasting. So.
Yes, exactly. Which is what this is. Precisely. Yeah. So I was glad to, dig these comics out. We'll talk a little bit about Peter David once we get a bit further into the history of the Hulk. The Hulk is probably my favorite Marvel concept. Just as the concept of it.
Yeah.
I like the purity of the Jekyll and Hyde thing, but also as I get older, I love when Hulk just wants to go and sit in the grass and the flowers, and everybody leaves him alone. And he just sits there and enjoys the breeze. And the older I get, the more I cling on to that. And there's a moment in this movie that captures that.
There's a couple, really.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, he's a very versatile character, the Hulk, isn't he?
Yes, that's the other thing, is because I would also say, besides being the most pure concept, it is also maybe the most soap opera at Marvel. Like, more, you always think about the X-Men being the ones that have all the drama. But all the twists and turns are really going on in Hulk. There's so much craziness happening, which most people don't really know about. If you visualize the Hulk, you think about this green monster in the desert fighting tanks.
Yes.
And not much else.
Well, yeah, for sure. This film especially. Well, it depends. What's your exposure to the Hulk? The Hulk, I read, doing research for this episode, I read that the Hulk is probably, before the MCU, was probably the Marvel character that was most well known.
100%. I grew up on the Lou Ferrigno TV series. I watched that. It was really scary for me. When he opens his eyes and his eyes have changed color.
You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
Yeah, he opens his eyes and he changed color. And it was in the opening credits of the show.
Bill Bixby is the...
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was scary for me. Every week, that moment was scary for me. That show ran from 77 to 81, so I was like 4 or 5 years old. I would watch this and Wonder Woman with my parents. That show was also the greatest. And then as soon as the TV show ended, 81, there was this cartoon in 82, narrated by Stan Lee. Now, in my mind, I was like, I was obsessed with this cartoon. I was like, oh, it must have been 100 episodes. I remember the theme music to this day. I'm singing the theme music in my head, da 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 da, all the time. And then I looked at it this week, prepping for this episode. I was like, 13 episodes? What? How is this possible?
Oh my god, it's so much lower than I expected.
This is such a huge part of my psyche, this cartoon. And the thing I loved about that cartoon, but I knew even as a kid when I was 6, is he would turn into the Hulk, his clothes would rip off, and when he turned back into Banner, his clothes would magically reappear. It would just they would glow onto his body. It was very, I was just like, this makes no sense, but I loved that show. And at the same time, it was kind of, I guess, a spin-off of Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Like, there was kind of a backdoor pilot in that.
Well, Spider-Man would be the only other character that had the kind of mainstream awareness that the Hulk has.
But that was also narrated by Stan Lee. So I knew Stan Lee's voice as a little kid from these two cartoons.
Excelsior!
Yes. Yes.
Stan Lee appears in this movie this week, playing yet another character. We're going to have a Stan Lee rule.
Right.
That he doesn't count. Because he just keeps popping up.
Yes, but it's interesting because has he popped up in... Oh, he was in the Fantastic Four movies, that's right. Yeah.
Yes, as a character, as a named character, but also as himself.
Yes, yeah.
So he technically made it to 3.
Yeah.
So he was also... I believe you sounded the trumpets for him.
Yes, I did.
On that episode. And now he's 4.
Yeah.
And who knows where he's going to pop up next. So I think we're going to have the Stanley exception.
Right, okay. Okay, so there was a movie called The Amazing Colossal Man that came out in 1957.
Oh, I didn't hear about that.
This like nuclear bomb test, and some pilot crashed on the field, so the scientists had to run out and save the pilot.
Whoa.
And then he turned into this guy, started growing like 10 feet every day until he was this big, giant, 50-foot tall guy that wreaked havoc across the United States. And then we get, in 1962, the first issue of The Incredible Hulk from Marvel Comics by Lee and Kirby.
Is there a smoking gun there?
Yeah, but I think you'd probably say that for a lot of...
You can draw all kinds of...
Yeah, I mean, we had this with Punisher, with Mac Bolan Executioner, those Don Pendleton novels.
Yes.
So it happens sometimes.
Superman and Gladiator, you could...
Yeah.
I think it's a rich tapestry, 20th century popular culture.
Absolutely.
I'm no massive fan of Stan Lee, hence the exception. But I don't think he was ripping off Jekyll and Hyde if he was ripping off
Absolutely, yeah. And that was, when Alan Moore was coming up with the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, he was like, well, let's go back to the progenitors of all these superheroes. Like, who is the Invisible Woman? That's the Invisible Man. And who's the Incredible Hulk? That's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And he was making a superhero team that way.
Yes.
By going back to all those origins.
Yes.
So, I think everybody knows the basic concept of this.
So, we talk about the 62 issue.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. So, basically, it's about this scientist named Bruce Banner, who is working on a gamma bomb out in the desert.
This is not a nuclear bomb or an atomic bomb. It's a new kind of bomb.
Yes. But the Army General, Thunderbolt Ross, says a bomb is a bomb. He doesn't care about these egghead scientists. He's like, just give me my goddamn bomb.
I love it.
He shows up with his daughter. For some reason, Betty is at the test site. Why bring her onto this?
I know.
Nuclear? And then when Betty tries to ask a question, he's like, shut up, this is man talk. He says to his daughter.
Wild.
Yeah. And
just right out the gate.
Also,
Thunderbolt's characterization has changed very little since
then. Right. That's right. He's a big thick-headed army dude, basically. Yep. And
stiff-necked.
And there's another scientist on site. His name is Igor.
I'm sure he's a great guy.
Yeah, and the secret of the gamma bomb is kept by Banner.
Yes.
No one else knows. No one else on the crew knows exactly how this is going to work. But he's got a notebook. All the notes with his secrets of this bomb are back in his.
All the formula are back in his
cabin, like on his base cabin.
Yeah.
And Igor's like, tell us the secrets, man. And he's like, no, I'm not going to tell you. It's my secret. Thunderbolt Ross shows up. He's like, get this goddamn test over with. All right, so they're about to push the button. Suddenly, this hot-headed 1962 teenager named Rick Jones has, on a dare, gotten past the security guards on the test site and is driving out there in a Jeep. And Bruce sees this. He's like, holy shit. He says
to Igor, pause the test.
Yeah.
I have to go out there and get this kid out of here.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Of course, Igor, you may have guessed from the name, is up to no good. He is, in fact, a Soviet spy.
Yeah.
Much like the real Soviet spy at Los Alamos, Fuchs. He is passing secrets to the Soviet Union, to the communists. And he decides, this is perfect. I won't delay the test. That way I will have all the secrets and Banner will be dead.
Yeah, how will we have this? Oh, he needs to get the notebook. He needs Banner to be dead, and he needs to go into the cabin and get the notebook.
Yep.
His base quarters. So, Bruce goes out there. He pushes Rick into a ditch, which is supposed to be like a safety ditch. That's what it's there for.
Yes, if you're in it, gamma rays can't get you.
That's right.
But if you're out of it, you're in trouble.
Yes. Well, in later years, as part of the soap opera retconning of this, Rick does end up with all sorts of powers and stuff.
Well, everyone forever does.
Absolutely.
In Marvel, but especially in Hulk stories.
Rick has a wild history on his own. He ends up teaming up with Captain America. Yep. He ends up being the host for Captain Marvel for a while.
Yeah, and he has a Hulk power. It's two different sets of Hulk powers, I believe.
Yeah.
Two separate sets. I read it. I read one of Peter David's comics about where Rick Jones gets captured by Skrulls.
Yes.
And they try to break him down mentally, by masquerading as all of his various superhero personas, and there are at least 4.
Yeah.
And they're all surrounding it at one point.
Yeah.
That's a great issue.
Yeah.
Also has possibly the greatest single Peter David line, which is, don't look shocked. I always carry a miniature parachute with me in case I have to jump from an exploding Skrull saucer.
He wrote about this scene very specifically in he used to write a column for Comic Buyer's Guide called But I Digress. And he wrote about that scene. He said he wrote the issue, and he got to the last page and forgot about Rick.
How's he gonna get
And he was
out
like,
of
oh
this
shit,
exploding
how do I get
saucer?"
Rick out of the Skrull? And he just like wrote this line and had him come down with a parachute.
Yeah, and Banner even says, that's ridiculous.
Yes.
And Rick James says, why? I needed it, didn't I?
Yes. He didn't use the term put a hat on it, but that's what he was doing.
I love how little respect Peter David had for me in that panel.
Yes.
What a legend.
Yes. So, Rick is safe because he was in the ditch. But Banner's caught in the blast. They take him back to the base hospital. Banner's like, I should be dead. Like, what happened? But there's a strange effect of the gamma radiation, much like the radiation in the spider that bit Peter Parker, or the cosmic radiation that affected the Fantastic Four.
Yep.
That night, he turns into this big gray oaf, a Hyde type, like a Mr. Hyde type. He's a mean guy, kind of doesn't quite remember that he's Banner.
No, he doesn't, that's right. He doesn't remember that he's Banner, whereas Banner remembers that he's Hulk. That's straight out of Jekyll and Hyde.
Yes.
In the strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Hyde didn't remember his life as Jekyll, whereas Jekyll remembered his life as Hyde.
Yes. But actually, I think throughout most of Hulk's history, Banner doesn't remember what he was doing as Hulk. He was like, what did I do last night? He like wakes up and he doesn't know where he was or what happened.
Well, the characterization quickly marches on from this.
Oh, yes, because as this is established, we have a gray Hulk who turns into Hulk at night and turns into Banner at daytime.
Yeah.
This lasts for about 6 issues. By the second issue, they changed his color to green.
Right. Now, I heard a rumor that it was meant to be green from the start. What have you heard about that?
The story I've heard is that they made him gray and they couldn't keep the gray consistent through that issue.
Right.
And they're like, we got to change the color in the second issue to something that we can keep the same in every panel. The shade of gray was constantly shifting, and they were like, it's not working. So they changed it to green. And then, over the years, whenever they reprinted the first issue, they would always make him green.
Ah, I see.
But then they reconned it, instead of retconning it, they reconned it back into this thing.
Yeah.
Where in the later years, they divide it into 3 personalities. So after this gray period, we go to a green period. Usually what happens is Dr. Banner either tries to cure himself or kill himself with a burst of gamma radiation or a gamma bath or some gamma thing.
Yes.
And it will change him. It will turn him green into a green rampaging monster that's almost mindless. That says Hulk smash and puny Banner and stuff like that, and not much else. Whereas Grey Hulk is he has a brain, he's just a mean thug. Yeah. He's like a gangster.
That's very much what he's like in this first issue. Yeah. He's quite articulate.
Yes. Like Frankenstein's monster, if you were to read the novel, I would say.
Yes. Yes. Or like Hyde, who is also articulate.
Yes. Exactly, yes.
But yeah, as you say, that changes pretty quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah, so that changes, and then we get more radiation bursts. He turns back into Grey Hulk, and later on the Raiders kind of defined it as Grey Hulk was more his teenage personality, and the Green Hulk was his infant personality, because we started to get into this whole storylines about how he had this repressed anger. And that was part of the Hulk thing. And his childhood repressions came out as Green Hulk, and his teenage, his sexual repressions came out as Grey Hulk.
When did this come along? Is this
I would say
Peter David?
Early 80s. No, Peter David kind of really went deep into it.
Yes.
But it was established, there was an early, I think around, there's an issue 312, 314, which would have been around 82, 83, actually drawn by Mike Mignola. I can't remember who wrote it, but they give you the whole backstory about his father.
Yes.
So his father was also a gamma scientist.
Yes.
And when the baby's born, he's worried that because of the radiation he's taken on, it's affected the child.
Yes, I did look this up. Yes, that's right. These kinds of early kind of like childhood issues were cropping up.
Yeah,
before David's run.
And the kid is super smart. Baby Bruce is way too smart, and the dad is like worried about this. He's also becomes violent and abusive.
Yeah.
And ends up even killing the mother. He gets put away for a while for temporary insanity. I think that was how he got off that crime. But
wait, are you sure he killed the mother before David's run? I'm not sure about that.
Yes.
How sure?
I think it's in that issue. It's in 312 or 314.
I read the synopsis. I don't remember him killing. It's possible. Anyway, we'll leave it ambiguous for now.
So the mother. The dad killed the mom, and all this stuff was repressed by Bruce.
It doesn't matter. Sorry, go on. Yeah.
So Bruce has these three personalities that are effectively end up kind of struggling with each other. Green Hulk, the child, Grey Hulk, the teen or young adult, and Bruce Banner, who is the person who's trying to contain them and keep them from coming out. Meanwhile, Betty marries this other guy named Glenn Talbot at one stage, I think, and there's some soap opera stuff there where they get divorced. She does end up marrying Bruce. Bruce keeps thinking he's killed the Hulk. Sometimes they separate from the Hulk. They become two beings, but then they find out that, oh no, they're both dying.
Yeah.
We need to re-merge them. That ends up in a new version of Hulk.
I think what you will be picking up from people that are listening is that the Hulk has kind of infinite potential to be anything the writer needs him to be.
Yeah.
Because the Hulk is an alter ego, you don't have to be super consistent with his characterization.
Right.
You can apply gamma rays and he can become something else.
Yes.
You can have this Grey Hulk for a time. The Grey Hulk goes and works as a mafia enforcer, I think.
In Las Vegas. Not mafia. He's like a casino, an enforcer or like a bouncer almost called Mr. Fix-It. Where he's intelligent. During the Peter David run.
Yeah. This is So, or the Hulk can be as articulate or as mindless as you need him to be to tell your story. Even Banner can be like a nebbish. Yeah. He can be driven. He can be milquetoast.
Yes, and there's one of my favorite versions. There's some versions of Hulk that are smart as Banner, especially during the Peter David run.
Yes.
One of my favorite versions was through whatever Gamma Burst it was this time. He turns into Banner when he gets angry. So Hulk has to keep his cool. He can't get angry up to a certain level, or he turns back into Banner again.
Right.
Which was a version I really enjoyed. There's also, at some point they established that it wasn't the case in the beginning, that the madder Hulk gets, the stronger he gets.
Yes.
In this movie that we're going to talk about, he gets bigger. He gets physically, like, the angrier he gets, he
actually grows larger. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah. This is the only film I think this is the only property that's specifically done this, right?
I don't think so. Usually they just say he can smash a planet if he gets angry enough, but they don't usually.
He doesn't usually get larger.
Yeah.
So this is all fantastic, but it has the effect of making, I suppose, Hulk something of an unreliable character as well at the same time. And I know that when Peter David took over we'll talk about Peter David now. When Peter David took over the run in the 80s, Hulk was like the bastard child of the Marvel universe. Like, people didn't really want to work on... This is what Peter David wrote in a blog I read. People didn't really want to work on Hulk because it's sort of, like, how do you come to grips with him? What's he doing? He's always changing. I think when Peter David took over, he'd reverted back to almost to the version that he was in the original Stan Lee Kirby comics. Yeah. He was maybe grey at that point, and was turning into Hulk at night, and turning back to Banner in the morning, like a vampire almost, or something like that.
Werewolf, maybe?
Yeah.
So, they do talk about the moon and sun. At one point, the leader, who was Mayhem, and his arch enemy, who's another guy that was affected by gamma rays, but it made him super smart.
Yes.
He has a huge brain.
Yes.
This giant...
Instead of becoming dumb and strong, he became smart and...
Yeah. But he tells the Hulk at some point that, like, you're stronger and the brighter the moon is, or you have more control or something like that.
Okay.
Yes.
I've actually I've read very few Hulk comics. I only read the ones that you set for this week, which is 90% Peter David.
Yeah.
But yes, Peter David said that this might even have been like one of his very first kind of gigs writing comics.
Yeah, so Peter David was a sales rep for Marvel.
Right.
He was not a writer, and then somehow he convinced somebody, can I write some fill-in issues? And then he started writing, and he wrote Hulk for a monumental 12 years. Yeah. From 1987 to 1998, from issue 331 to 467, a huge run of 12 years. And then he became a writer of TV and stuff like that. And
Peter David was...
Novels, started writing Star Trek novels.
Yeah, he wrote some amazing Star Trek novels.
Yeah.
Peter David kind of like was brilliant in so many crappy areas.
Yes.
No, crappy's not right. He was brilliant in so many unrecognized or marginal popular culture media. You know, official novelizations, certain comics.
Yeah.
You know, television shows that not enough people watched. Video games. How often do we think about the writers of video games? There's some rock stars, you know, like Hideo Kojima or someone like that. Yeah. Most of the time, we don't know who these people are. Peter David was a genius at writing in the margins of popular culture.
Yeah.
Really brilliant.
Yeah.
And as you say, his kind of like magnum opus is this run on Hulk. And his great contribution to the mythos is to establish the Hulk that we all really know today, which is the Hulk with what we now call dissociative identity disorder.
Yes.
Or multiple personality disorder, as it was known in the day. This is the idea that Banner, because of this trauma he suffered as a child, became mentally ill.
Yes. Yes.
Like, he's a mentally ill character. And even more, unlike Jekyll and Hyde, where it's the potion, the drug that Dr. Jekyll consumes, that makes his base instincts as Dr. Hyde come out. So it's the potion very much that's doing it. David's, I suppose, clever inversion is that it's not the gamma rays that make Banner the Hulk, it's the fact that he's mentally ill.
Right.
He becomes the Hulk because he had a Hulk personality all along.
Yes. Yes.
And he becomes Grey Hulk, Joe Fixit, the kind of sleazy, passionate one, because he had that personality all along. And the Hulk personality existed as... This is actually... The diagnosis of DID is contentious and not accepted by all psychologists. But the consensus is that it occurs when you, A, repress trauma, and B, when you need to wall off parts of your personality that you find difficult or traumatic.
Yeah.
So in the case here is the anger is Green Hulk and the lust is Grey Hulk.
Yes, yes.
And this is all comes out in a fabulous issue. Issue 377.
Yes, it came out with a fluorescent cover. It was like a big deal. Like, they're really pushing it. It's called Honey, I Shrunk the Hulk.
I was going to mention that last, because it really ruins it.
Well, I want to point it out because I didn't come into Peter David through Hulk. I came into him through his run on a comic called X Factor, which was an X-Men spin-off book. But that book was hilarious. It was weird. It was like, why is this X-Men book so funny? Why is it allowed to be? And that was just his writing style.
Yeah,
it was
he's
like
very
what
funny.
You knew
Oh my God,
what you were going to get. But also, I had read one Hulk issue because when I was in the 8th grade, a guy came in with issue 340, which was this crossover with Wolverine.
Oh, we read that this week.
It's a very famous... In years since, it's become really famous.
It's referenced in Deadpool vs. Wolverine.
Right, okay. It's got this really famous cover that's been copied a million times. We've got to talk a little bit about the artists. But that one was drawn by Todd McFarlane, who later went on to become a real superstar. And
Spawn Guy.
Spawn Guy was selling literally millions of comics in the 90s. He had a certain weird art style that caught on.
Capes.
Hyper detailed.
We've done Todd McFarlane.
We have talked about him for Batman Year 2, yeah. We have talked about him a little bit.
Capes.
Yes, but his, like... Hulk was really, like, craggy, really wrinkly, so wrinkly, because he just couldn't stop drawing lines. And he has this fight with Wolverine in this issue, which I'd never seen anything like it before. Because the gore was green, they didn't have to worry about the comics code. Hulk's blood was green. And when I would draw it all over my notebooks and stuff, I would copy the way McFarlane drew the blood in this issue, because I was like, oh my God, what is this comic? It was this knockdown, drag-out fight with Hulk and Wolverine, and it stuck with me forever.
There's some tissue-thin plotting that's going on. I can't even remember. It's something about Wolverine being the leader of the X-Men at the time.
Yeah. They stop...
And sort of struggling, I guess, with being a leader and having to repress his thuggish attributes.
Yeah.
Then, meanwhile, Hulk is incredibly wrinkly and cranky.
Yeah.
He just wants to go out and get air, just like you mentioned. He just wants to go and sit in the forest.
I think he's looking for food in this instance, actually, because they find him in a food truck.
Yes, that's right.
He's wrecked a food truck or something.
He's looking for food. He starts off saying he just needs some air.
Yeah.
And then he's out getting food. And then he's jumping around and then he gets hit by airplane debris, basically.
Yes.
Some airplane crashes.
Yeah.
He causes an airplane accident or something causes it.
Yes, that's right. He's leaping through the air and he dodges the X-Men Quinjet.
Yes.
And then because he dodged, he ends up hitting a commercial airliner.
That's it.
And then the X-Men have to save that airliner.
And then one of the engines falls and hits him on the head.
Yes.
And he just becomes really angry because he got hit on the head.
Yeah.
And then Wolverine lands to find out what this thing was. He finds that it's Hulk, and Hulk just won't back down. He just wants to scrap.
Yeah.
Wolverine's trying to calm him down against his own nature because Wolverine just wants to scrap as well.
Yeah.
And in the end, they just end up having this multi-page fight.
Yeah.
And it's so rad.
Yeah. So that was my first exposure to Peter David. Was
right. What an entry point.
At the time, though, I didn't read the names of artists or writers. They were just comics.
Yeah. Sure.
So it wasn't really until X Factor. I mean, I knew about his run on Hulk, but I was like, how do you get into this thing? It's 7 years into it or whatever. I read X Factor. I absolutely loved it. So all the things you pointed out, I just want to say that Todd McFarlane was the artist on the book until about issue 345. And then when he left from Image, he had a very contentious relationship with Peter David. I don't know what it was like when they were... I think it must have been fine when they were on the book, because he gifted that cover to Peter David.
Wow.
So Peter David did own that. We have to mention here that despite all of Peter David's writing, he died under a mountain of medical debt.
I was going to mention
and maybe
this towards the
that
end.
was even the thing that killed him, was he couldn't afford the treatment he needed. I'm not sure. He was trying for years to write on TNG. And some producer that was blocking him, he wrote about it in his But I Digress column, that he had a bitterness against this guy, or like he held a grudge against him because that guy he was very upset about it. He was never... I just feel like maybe he would still be getting some residuals if he'd managed to get an episode in. Because he ended up writing tons of Star Trek comics, novels, as we mentioned.
It was all just marginalia, wasn't it? Not stuff that made money.
It was not enough.
But I'd like to return to that before we finish the episode.
Okay, so after Todd McFarlane, there was an artist came on called Dale Keown. Both these guys were Canadian. I don't know what the connection... Hulk is there. Wolverine, Canadian?
Wolverine's Canadian.
And Wolverine first appeared in Hulk 181. Very first time Wolverine ever appeared in a comic book.
I didn't know that.
So
that's cool.
Maybe there's some... They actually talk about it in that issue in 340.
Right.
Anyway...
we were talking about 377 way back at the start.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Honey, I Shrunk the Hulk. Oh, you mentioned it now. The cat's out of the bag.
Yeah.
What a title.
Yeah, well, okay, the reason I spilled the beans on titles is because I always think of Peter David as the kind of humor writer in comics. Yeah. He was the guy that was writing funny comics that have jokes. This is a serious issue of the Hulk. And page
serious.
1, you open it up, it's called Honey, I Shrunk the Hulk. They put a special fluorescent cover. They use special ink for this thing. And he's just like, the title of this is
I'm just going to call it Honey, I Shrunk. You're right, we should embrace it. You're right. It's astonishing because this is an amazing issue. Incredibly influential. Almost as good as the anatomy lesson. Frankly.
Yeah. I would suggest that this issue influenced the movie, I think.
100%.
Yeah.
Everyone that's written about the Hulk since this issue has been drawing on this in some way, shape, or form. 100%. This is how we think of as the Hulk, the guy with multiple personality disorder.
Yeah. So basically the whole thing kind of takes place in Hulk's mind. They've hypnotized Banner. Banner's unconscious, or he's...
Fantastically, there's a character called Dr. Samson.
Yes.
Who is a psychologist.
Yes.
And he chases Hulk all around the world.
Yes.
trying to get him on a couch.
Yes, but he's a beefcake with a mullet.
Yeah.
He wears his shirt down to his navel.
Well, he was
but he's a
originally-
Marvel Comics psychiatrist or psychologist.
Yeah, he was originally some kind of like weedy guy, and the gamma things made him.
That's
into,
right.
Like, a
He's had
beefcake.
gamma exposure too.
And, But I just love that he chases. I just love the image of him chasing Banner all around the place. They're like, come back, Banner, come fucking lie on the couch.
Yeah.
We need to talk about your mother.
Yes.
So he's enlisted some kind of supervillain who has a hypnosis ring.
Yes, the ringmaster.
Maybe he doesn't have a hypnosis
Circus
ring.
master?
Something like that. He's the ringmaster.
Yeah.
And he works for the Circus of Crime.
Yeah, in the previous issue, the three personalities had really been freaking out, and he was like... Banner's becoming all warped. Like, he'd have part of him would be gray, part green, part big, part scrawny.
Yep.
He was all mixed up, and then he finally passes out, and now he's been hypnotized by the circus master.
Yep. Ringmaster.
Ringmaster, and so we get these three personalities talking to each other, and Doc Samson in his head. We get the father. It looks like a monster, which he looked like in that issue. I think it was Bill Mantlo, that issue 312 or 314.
That's who wrote it, yeah.
Yeah. He's this big, like, monstrous creature that Baby Banner is scared of. There's some recreations of that scene where he's, like, building this Meccano set on Christmas.
Yeah. So Samson is trying to get Banner to relive.
Yeah.
Trying to get him to experience these repressed memories.
Yeah.
So that he can understand why he is the way he is. And he keeps dragging him back with the three of them, Banner, Grey Hulk, Green Hulk, to these scenes where there's this enormous monster that's his. We know it's his father, but it's not signposted in captions or in text.
That's right.
Just yelling,
Yeah.
carrying on, like calling Banner a monster.
And a mutant, which is the thing in the Marvel Universe is, like, really taboo.
That's the N word.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
And the Hulks trying to attack the two Hulks trying to attack this monster and just being torn to ribbons by it.
Yeah.
And it all builds up kind of to a crescendo, which is where the father monster kills Bruce's mother.
Yes.
On the driveway in front of a car. And there's this great scene where the kid is there and the adult Bruce is like, do something, say something. Why don't you get angry?
Yes, show some emotion. Let your emotions out. Because he's repressing it even as a 2-year-old, 3-year-old. Yeah.
Yeah. Does he hit him? Is that what happens?
Well, he hulks out. The baby turns into a big green Hulk, and then he shrinks back down into a child again, and he says, I reacted, because he kept saying, Bruce,
react, why don't you do something? React. And then he becomes the
I
Hulk.
reacted, a nuclear reaction. Happy now? He says, yeah.
It's so perfect.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it really is.
I just love it.
Yeah.
Oh my god, what a line.
Yeah.
Because that's how...
It is a nuclear reaction. It's Peter David.
Because that's where Hulk came from. He came from the nuclear reaction, the gamma reaction. What David is saying is that where the Hulk came from was not that reaction.
Yeah.
The famous one where he was exposed to gamma rays, but this one.
Yeah.
Right back at the start when he began to repress this memory.
Yeah.
It's... amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Then we get a scene in the graveyard at the mother's grave. By the way, this isn't the Bill Mantlo issue, the graveyard scene. So the mom was definitely dead. And the father comes back and... Yeah,
okay.
That isn't there. So the monster shows up again, but they confront the monster and call him the monster, and it shrinks him down into a normal man.
Yeah.
Who then just kind of disintegrates into dust, and then the mother appears, and she's like, you need to, she says, he needs you now, meaning Bruce. No more fighting. She's talking to the two Hulks, Green and Grey Hulk, and they all, like, they put their hands into Bruce. This is all in his mind, but they all merge into this one thing. Meanwhile, Betty's been outside, waiting to see what the result of this process is. She's finally, like, exasperated that how long it's taking. She says, I'm going to go see what's happening in there. And before she can go in there, the door opens, and it's a Green Hulk.
And he says, honey, I'm home.
Yes, but he's got a grin like Grey Hulk.
Yeah. It's a bit sinister. A little bit sinister.
Yeah, a little bit. So he's got the kind of maybe the teenage young adult personality in the green body with the intelligence of Banner.
The idea is that this is the synthesis.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
You know, the the various personalities have combined. He's been quote unquote cured.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And here we see the synthesis of the three personalities.
Yeah.
But is it good news or bad? We don't know.
Yeah.
Well, we find...
Well, we got 7 more years of Peter David comics of ups and downs, basically.
Plenty.
Yeah.
But what a story.
Yeah. I want to open a tab on one more Peter David anecdote.
Sure.
Which is the one time I met him.
You met him? Amazing.
At San Diego Con 1997. So he writes a story in his But I Digress column. When he was a sales rep, he set up a convention with a signing for... It's a big artist. I can't remember who. It might have been Barry Windsor Smith or someone. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. They had to cancel. Maybe it was John Byrne. And they had to cancel. So the fans were coming to sing. He managed to find a local artist to sit in at this little booth at a comic shop. Or I don't think it was coming. It was a comic shop.
Okay.
I think. And people were coming up to get this guy to do sketches. And they would try to get Peter David to do drawings. And... he said there was this one person in particular just kept coming up saying, draw Wolverine, draw Storm. And Peter David's like, I'm not an artist. Stop asking me to draw stuff. I'm just here. I'm a sales rep from around. I'm sitting next to the guy. This guy's the artist. And this guy just wouldn't stop. Draw a Nightcrawler. Draw this or that. Finally, David gets exasperated. He's like, fine, I'll draw Storm. And he drew a cloud with a lightning bolt coming out. And he gave it to the kid. And the kid says, how much do you want for it? And he's like, what? He's like, actually, the money part comes later. But first, the guy says, okay, draw like a Nightcrawler. So he draws a worm or something like this. And people started coming up and asking for them. And so he started, doing these little storm clouds. Or Professor X was like a letter X with like a graduation hat on one of the peaks. So anyway, then people started asking how much. He said $1, and then they started taking out their wallets. He's like, I was kidding. Like, just take these stupid things. So, and he says sometimes people still come up and ask him for these things at conventions. So when I saw him in 97, I got him to sign my book.
So cool.
And he signed his name, and he said, to come our best wishes, Peter David. And then I said, could you also please draw? And I saw his body just tensed right up. And I said, could you draw a cloud with a lightning bolt? And he immediately, lit up. He's like, oh, you want one of my Paddington Storm drawings. So he drew this cloud with a lightning bolt, and then he said, I'll even add some rain in there, and then he added this little bit of rain.
That's a beautiful story.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's my
amazing,
Peter David story. He was really funny, and he was a great guy. Okay, now, let's talk about this movie.
Okay.
From 2003. Directed by Ang Lee. So we had The Ice Storm, I think around 99, Crouching Tiger around 2000, 2001.
Yes. 2
aces in a row.
Yep.
Hulk 2003, Brokeback Mountain was 2005, I think. Yeah. This is kind of the ugly stepchild in between those 4.
Very much so. The black sheep of the family.
Yes.
We had Sense and Sensibility as well in 95.
Yeah, oh yes, that's the other one I forgot to mention, yeah. Yeah, so that was actually 3 in a row. So it's like Sense and Sensibility, Ice Storm, Crouching...
Like, the master... Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, of course, is one.
And you were like, who is this guy? Because we had these very different, generic, in terms of genre, very different movies.
Different in terms of genre, 100%. But
to go from the Ice Storm to Crouching Tiger, like, who is this guy? And then he was doing those, like, rom-coms back in Taiwan, like, before this, I think.
Eat, Drink, Man, Woman.
Yeah.
The Wedding or something like that.
Yeah.
I watched Eat, Drink, Man, Woman in the 90s.
Yeah.
It's a great movie. And it's an Ang Lee movie.
Yeah.
His movies are all the same. Very much about the inner life of the characters.
Yes.
And their relationships with their family.
Yeah.
And romantic partners.
Well, The Ice Storm, Tobey Maguire's reading a Fantastic Four comic.
Yeah, you've posted it on the Facebook.
And trying to find, like, connections, like, trying to relate that to his own family and trying to figure out why his family isn't working, whereas the Fantastic Four is.
You know when you're watching an Ang Lee movie, don't you? Because it's just...
Yes and no. I mean... You would never guess that the guy that made the Ice Storm would make Crouching Tiger.
And then would make Hulk.
Yeah, exactly.
And then would make Brokeback Mountain.
Yeah, you'd be like, what?
And yet they all have this thread, which is that he's just brilliant at showing the way, like, emotional distance and emotional connection.
Yeah.
among family and people that feel drawn to one another. You just really know it when you see it.
Yeah. Okay, this movie came out from Universal. Not Sony or Fox. I was a bit surprised at that. I did see this at cinema in 2003 when it came out.
Did you?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I haven't seen it since. This is my first rewatch. I was surprised by the Danny Elfman score. I had forgotten about that.
Yes.
Is this our third? Danny Elfman, Batman, Dick Tracy, and this one?
We've had at least one more.
Okay. I won't be able to remember it at the moment, but anyway.
We've had at least one more Danny Elfman score.
Yeah. So now we get this title sequence with a comic booky font. It looks like the Wild Words font. I don't know that it is. Could be.
It's close enough that you look at it and you say comic book
Yes.
font.
And the credits are over a montage of this guy doing experiments on like starfish and stuff.
Sea cucumbers, starfish.
Yeah, a bit weird.
Tortoises.
Much like the spiders in Spider-Man, there's no relationship between the nervous systems of spiders and humans or starfish and humans. It's a bit of a comic booky stretch here for this guy. Anyway, we figure out...
This is probably inspired by the Spider-Man movies.
Yeah.
I would say. But I like a film that wearing its comic book origins on its sleeve.
Yes.
We very much like comic booky elements in your introductory credits.
Yeah. And then it turns out slowly we learn that this is Bruce Banner's father. His name is Brian in the comics, but what's his name? David. Oh, so they gave him the name of the Bill Bixby version of Banner. Because in the TV show, he wasn't called Bruce Banner.
No.
For some reason that there's lots of myths about it over the years of why they didn't call him Bruce Banner in the show. The craziest one, which is apparently false, was that Bruce was considered a homosexual name. In the 70s. So they're like, we can't call him Bruce Banner.
Okay.
I don't know where this came
Weird.
from. Although, wasn't Frank Herbert's son Bruce?
Was he gay?
Yeah.
Ding ding.
Yeah.
There you go. Proof positive.
Yeah.
We've solved it.
Okay. Yes. Okay, so we learned that this is David Banner. David is trying to... it seems like he's working on some sort of immune therapy or something. He's trying to, like, regrow limbs for humans, much like, I guess, the lizard in Spider-Man. So he's experimenting on these starfish and stuff. And he wants to go further. He wants human subjects, the army, led by Thunderbolt Ross, a young Thunderbolt Ross at this stage. This takes place in 66.
Yeah. Is it 66 or is it...
Yeah, it's 66.
Oh.
He's not willing to approve human experimentation, so David Banner experiments. He injects himself.
Yeah. So far, so good. We're like 2 minutes in.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. We're like 5 minutes in the movie. His wife has a baby. This montage is so fast, and we start to see weird stuff is happening with the camera movements, editing, within minutes of this. As soon as the credits are done, the camera's moving around in all sorts of weird ways. We're getting...
It's wild. So the screen will divide down the middle.
Yep.
We'll have things that look reminiscent of comic panels.
Yes. But don't function like comic panels. Like
Not always. Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes, but a lot of times. Like, for example... Like, there's in this opening sequence, there's a scene where the transition next scene is like a cactus that like grows up into the screen and transitions into the garden that's outside, which is not a thing that would happen in a comic.
No, it's comic. I think you would say that it's comics inspired.
Exactly. Yes.
It's making very clear that it's comics is the origin of this visual language, I suppose. But it's doing things that comics can't do. Sometimes the panels will roll over.
Yes. Yes.
It's like a comic, you can't roll over. I suppose you could physically in your hands, but it wouldn't do anything. But like they'll roll over and reveal another.
Yeah. I tried to kind of keep track of some of the things that were happening, but they rarely repeated.
No.
And it was hard to. I couldn't keep track of them. I couldn't write them all down. One of my favorite ones is sometimes he'll have a. Normally in a movie you have two characters talking, you get a two-shot back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Here he'll show the character, and then he'll suddenly cut 15 degrees of the same character, That is like in a comic.
Yeah.
Where you have this, you have the same character.
Except we're seeing them at the same time.
Well, that would be a different one. I'm talking about you'll have the whole frame, and it would just cut to 15 degrees, a different angle. That was very comic booky. But yeah, sometimes you'll see them at the same time. When the screen is split, you've only got one audio, so you're looking at like both.
We'll see two visuals of the same person sometimes, the same act,
from
the same character,
sides,
from different angles. It's like, I guess that's something you could do. Like, when you're looking at a comic book page, you could look at two panels at once.
Oh, absolutely. And often a lot of readers will look at the whole page before they start with panel one. Yeah.
So this, this is impressive.
Yes.
I must say.
And I remember being really dazzled by it in 2003. And then last night watching it, I was like, oh boy, am I going to be a fan of this? And then it kind of dissolved. Like, I got used to it pretty quickly.
I reckon for me, yeah, that's fair. I reckon for me, it's something like the reverse. I think I saw it as distracting maybe when I first watched it in 03. Like, I didn't really get what was going on, and I thought it was a gimmick.
Yeah.
Now, I've watched so much cinema since then and have hosted more than 100 episodes of a podcast about movies. And now I think that I was really kind of blown away and couldn't wait to see the next.
Yeah, and you know what? I kept thinking of the Wachowski Speed Racer.
I thought of that too.
Because they were like, we're going to remake cinema.
They did say that.
But this is like Ang Lee. He's like, I'm going to do this for one movie because this makes sense for this one movie.
Yeah.
He wasn't trying to remake how you look at comic book movies. He wasn't saying everybody should start editing their movies this way.
Well, whenever movies are experimental, I go back to Speed Racer because I hated that.
Yeah.
And I think, if I hated Speed Racer, why do I like this?
Yes, I was asking myself that question.
Because there's a point.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yes,
With
right.
Speed Racer, there was no point.
That's right. It doesn't relate to racing. It doesn't make the cars seem like they're going faster, to have heads revolving around the screen. Here, it's interesting because this montage, which went by too fast, there was too much information happening. There's a point where, to get a bit ahead, there's some sort of accident at the base where Dad is doing these radiation experiments, these gamma experiments. He runs home, he pushes his wife into a room, slams the door, and there's a lot of yelling, and then this montage is happening, we cut away. My wife turned to me and said, is that supposed to imply that the dad killed the wife? And I was like, I'm not sure. Yeah. And it isn't revealed
until later. It's too early at this stage, but we know that he's been kicked off the project.
Right.
I think that is revealed at this point.
Okay,
so Ross, who is at this point a colonel, kicks David Banner off the project because they've discovered he's carrying out human experimentation on himself. They found blood samples in his lab. He then, in rage, goes and overloads the reactor on the base.
Right. Okay.
We see him sort of like doing it.
So this is my point: is that all these details were coming by too fast for me to absorb them.
Right.
Especially because of the montage as well. The montage is covering up for the fact that the information is coming very quickly, one sentence at a time, next scene. But somehow, subconsciously, my wife was picking up more than I was.
Great storytelling.
What was happening?
Funny. Unfortunately, it's not sustained because it sure gets wordy very quickly.
Yes. So they had a baby. Dad is worried that maybe he's transmitted some of his gamma blood to the son.
Very clear right away that he's worried.
Yes.
That the kid's inherited some.
And he's taken blood samples.
It's not gamma. He's doing some sort of genetic experimentation
yes, that's right.
here. Gamma doesn't come into it yet, even though there is a definite gamma element when he overloads the reactor on the base.
Okay. Right.
But that's incidental. It's just there for, I suppose, how would you describe it? Bookends purposes. Just to remind us that that's how Hulk got his powers originally in the comics.
Yeah. By the way, so we get a moment where baby Bruce is like bullied by another kid, but he has no reaction.
That's right. He's just so bottled up.
He just bottles it up. But when he's playing with his like dinosaur toys, they're absolutely like destroying each other.
Oh yeah.
Like Hulk smash type stuff.
Every scene of this movie is like this.
Yes. By the way, it's
very layered.
We're like 7 minutes into this thing. So the gamma blast happens. We don't know exactly in the scene what happened to Mom. But next we see adolescent Bruce, and he's been adopted by the Krenzlers.
Mrs. Krenzler.
And she knows he's going to be a brilliant scientist, and we get to...
But he's freaking out.
Yes.
He's... Something's going on.
Yeah.
I think he's meant to be trying to keep his anger under control, but it's a little unclear. He's just sort of sweating, and it looks like he's had a nightmare or something.
Okay, so then we cut to grown-up Bruce, which is played by Eric Bana.
A Melbourne boy?
Yeah, I think this movie made him a star in the US for 10, 15 years.
It was probably Black Hawk Down that...
Was that before this?
Yeah, it was.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. All right, I didn't realize that. But he was he a stand-up or something like that?
He sure was. He used to appear on a sketch comedy show called Full Frontal.
Okay, and then he ended up in Chopper.
Yes.
How did he go from stand-up to Chopper? He seems like a weird casting choice.
He had been in movies. I think his first role ever might have been in The Castle.
Okay, yeah.
Where he plays a character called Con, who's obsessed with... what is he obsessed with? He's Greek-Australian.
Right.
And he's travelled to Bali, and that makes him a man of the world.
Yes, that's right. I remember this too. Yeah.
Anyway, but so he was an actor. Then he was sketch comedy, and he's clearly a talent because he later got sort of like a one-season show.
Okay.
I think called Eric.
Right.
And then he was in Chopper, and I think Chopper really kind of opened doors for him.
Okay. Well, this is, also the period where we've got Hugh Jackman. We're very shortly going to have Hemsworth show up. They really, at this time, it seemed like the Hollywood actors... at the Hollywood actors, you could either have the face or the body. You could have Vin Diesel or Tom Cruise. If you wanted both, you had to get the surfers. You had to go to Australia, get these guys.
Great.
He's in great shape in this.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
He's in great early 21st century shape.
Yeah.
So he's not dehydrated.
No, that's right.
He looks like a regular guy. It's nice to see.
Yeah. He's now working at this research base facility where he's working on gamma radiation.
Well, you keep saying gamma radiation, but gamma radiation barely comes into it.
Well, here they are doing something with gamma radiation on these frogs.
He's working on about 3 different things at once.
All right.
It seems to be This is one of my gripes. One of my big gripes about the film.
Yeah.
Is that what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, it's all going very fast.
With where the Hulk's powers are coming from.
Right. Okay.
Because he seems to be working with nanites.
Yes, that's
or
right.
what they call nanomeds.
Nanomeds, yeah.
They are introducing nanomeds into the bodies of things.
Right.
In this case, like a frog or a toad.
Yeah.
Then they bombard it.
Yeah.
With radiation, which is gamma radiation. Fair enough. Okay, that's the most energy intense form of electromagnetic radiation, I guess. The shortest wavelength.
Right.
So I guess the nanites need to be charged up with gamma radiation.
Oh, I see.
They never say this. You just kind of have to figure it out.
So something we didn't we implied in we talked about the comics was those early comics were implying that the reason Bruce survived the experiment, the gamma blast, which he himself said I shouldn't have survived that, was that because of whatever his father had passed down to him. Oh. So he's not like other people already. There's something already
Was
wrong.
that from the start?
No, that was
around
the Mantlo era. I think that's when the dad was like, I must have passed something on to my son. That's when that
very much happens here.
Right. Peter David had this brilliant line in that Hulk Wolverine issue where he says the Hulk is a cancer. Radiation causes cancer, overgrowth of cells. That's what this is. He heals. When you cut him, he just seals back up.
Yeah.
It's like this weird Marvel Comics cancer. It's like a superhero cancer is what it is. So that's kind of... half that's in here, like the reason it seems he survives the blast and this is because of what his father did to him.
Here there are at least 4 or 5 things going on.
Right.
I might as well jump right into it.
Okay.
Bruce has inherited hybrid DNA from his father.
Yes.
So his father was injecting himself with animal DNA from various different kinds of animal. Regeneration from starfish. Yeah. Skin hardening from like sea cucumbers or from lizards or all sorts of animals. 1960s genetic, I don't know, how does this work? How do you alter all the DNA in your whatever? He's doing recombinant experiments. Then that's passed on to Bruce. So this key here is not radiation. We've moved on from radiation. We're in the 21st century now. Now genes is the...
As it was in Spider-Man, with the genetically engineered spider instead of the radioactive spider.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now genes are at the top of the pyramids. he's passed these twisted genes onto Bruce. Okay, and he's very nervous about it from the start. He wants later on he says he wants a cure. Okay. Then we have these nanomeds, the things that Bruce is trying to achieve with nanomeds what his father was trying to achieve with genetic engineering in the 60s or 70s or whenever it is. Then we have the gamma rays. Okay, so gamma radiation is involved as well. You need gamma radiation to activate the nanomeds, which don't work in any of their test animals. It kills every single one of them.
Right.
The reason, spoilers, Bruce is later exposed to the nanomeds and gamma radiation at the same time, and the reason he isn't killed, it's strongly implied, is because of his DNA that he inherited from his dad. So we have at least 3 factors. There is possibly a 4th if we include his childhood trauma, which Peter David would say is essential to the kind of powers that he manifests. But I find this annoying. I would like one cause, please.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think what I was kind of implying with the comics is you can make it very simple. Just have the implication that the father's DNA and just give him a gamma blast and he survives it. That's enough.
We're talking about hundreds of issues in the comics, right? You can have a lot of explanations. Admittedly, this is a long film.
Yeah.
2 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But 3 to 4 explanations for where Bruce's powers come from is too many.
Yeah. He shows up at work. We get a cameo from Stanley and Lou Ferrigno.
Amazing.
As security guards coming out of the building. They have a very brief cameo here. Now we meet Bruce's ex-girlfriend, Betty, played by Jennifer Connelly. Oh,
amazing.
Boy, Jennifer Connelly.
She's so beautiful. This is her second appearance on the podcast.
Yeah, that's right. She was in The Rocketeer. I have to say, when I was a kid and I saw The Labyrinth, I had such a crush on Jennifer Connelly. And when we watched Rocketeer, I was like, cool, Jennifer Connelly. Boy, this one, the older she gets, this was something else. But they have broken up. We learn in this scene that Bruce doesn't know who his parents are because he's adopted.
He thinks they're dead.
He has no memories. He's repressed all these memories. He doesn't remember anything from those times. We get the experiment on the frog, which explodes. They have a co-worker named Harper.
Yes.
And now this other guy shows up, Glenn. He's from the comic. What did I say his name was again?
Glenn Talbot.
Glenn Talbot.
Yes.
He seems to be an ex of. Maybe he was involved with Betty in the past in university days or something.
It's implied, but it doesn't really go anywhere, which is nicely understated considering they were married in the comics. Right.
So he works for some outfit called Atheon, and he wants to acquire their research or this whole outfit, or he wants them to come work for him instead of working in this,
working for the government, having to deal with
and making barely any money, working in pretty.
Come get rich in the private sector.
That's right.
But he's sinister because he wants to militarize it.
That's right.
And Banner's not about it. He wants to heal people.
That's right. And also Betty's not into this either. We meet Betty's dad in the present, Thunderbolt. He's played by Sam Elliott.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what his deal is with Atheon. Is he okay with their trying to take it over? His aide, by the way, aide played by Daniel Day Kim.
That's right. His second appearance as well.
I was surprised to see him.
I'm always happy to see Daniel Day Kim.
Absolutely. As we said in the Hellboy episode, we have this pre-lost by a year or two, I guess.
Right. And at least he's not doing a terrible British accent here. He's allowed to have his own accent.
Yes. So... yeah, he reports that Atheon is trying to buy Betty's research. I'm not sure what the connection is here, why Thunderbolt needs to know about this.
So Sam Elliott is an okay Thunderbolt. We've had 3 Thunderbolts, I think, in modern movies, right? We've had Sam Elliott, we've had William Hurt, and now Harrison Ford.
Right.
I think my favourite's probably William Hurt.
Was it? Well, which one was William Hurt in? Was he in Incredible?
In The Incredible Hulk.
That's right. You're right.
He was great in that.
Yes.
Sam Elliott's pretty good, though. I haven't seen the new one with Harrison Ford, I think.
No. By the way, I love... there's some Freudian stuff going on in this movie, and I love that Betty looks like Bruce's biological mother.
Oh my god, you're right.
That was such a great touch.
Oh my god. How did I miss that?
Because now we get a scene where they're in the park. Weirdly, just cuts to a scene where they're taking a selfie in the park. By the way, the selfie, like, when he looks at it later, it, like, moves. But she tells him about a dream she has where she's in a diner with her dad on the base. There's an explosion. Dad runs out. But then grown-up Bruce comes to her rescue and then starts choking her. I was like, I love this. This is so Freudian. It's so weird.
This is the most Freudian movie I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah. It's really...
It's incredible.
Yeah.
I cannot believe I missed that. Because I was so aware of all this stuff.
It's funny because I remember seeing an interview with Ang Lee about Crouching Tiger when it came out, and how the Western critics are trying to read kind of Freudian stuff, and he's like, it's not there, but you can't avoid it if people try to read it into it. And in here, it's like... Let's make sure that Mom and Betty have the same hair color.
He was aware of it. He was aware of it.
And
I've got interviews with him where he explicitly compares this film to Greek drama.
Right.
Specific, like Greek tragedies.
Yeah.
And of course, Freud drew on the Greek tragedies for categorizing his, psychiatric concepts. That's why we say Oedipal complex.
Yeah.
This film is kind of like Oedipus Rex.
Yes. Yes. Meanwhile, there's this weird janitor that's working at the Institute.
Amazing.
The weird shag guy.
Okay, now the best thing about the movie happens, which is Nick Nolte.
Yes. Yeah.
Nick Nolte is so fucking incredible in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
He just... that famous mugshot of Nick Nolte? When he's wearing a Hawaiian shirt and his hair is everywhere?
Yes. Also, did he play like a similar character almost in Dan and Out in Beverly Hills?
I don't know, but it was while this film was being shot that mugshot was taken.
So he might have just been in character.
Yeah. So
he might be a method actor.
We don't even see his face. He's just mopping, and Betty says to him, what happened to so-and-so? And he just goes, so-and-so's dead. I'm the new guy.
I'm the new janitor, yeah.
It's like, you killed so-and-so, didn't you?
Yeah.
You absolutely killed so-and-so.
Yeah.
Then they vet people to come to work in a high-security laboratory.
I got lots of questions about this guy, which we'll talk about as we get to the movie.
He has just, like, endless access.
Yes. Oh, yeah, I have lots of questions. Yes, why didn't they vet him? Because this guy was in jail for 30 years.
He sure was.
As in the comic, but Thunderbolt doesn't like him. And yet, well, I guess this isn't a military institution.
No, but it's a government one. I mean, presumably they have security. It's some sort of high.
Yeah, but wouldn't they check, this guy got out of jail last month and he murdered his wife 30 years ago and he deliberately blew up this experiment?
Yeah. We just hire him. Maybe he has a false identity. It's just so funny.
Yes, he must.
They have, low-level vetting.
But Bruce sees him, and Bruce goes home at night and he sees this guy, this janitor, in a shot straight out of John Carpenter's Halloween, where he looks at the window, and the guy's standing on the street with his three dogs.
He's got 3 dogs.
Very weird stuff in this movie.
It's so good. He closes the blinds, he opens them again, and he's gone.
Yes.
It's rad.
And so the janitor goes to the lab and he steals one of Bruce's hairs.
Yep.
Which he finds, and he goes home and he does all these tests on it, and he gets the DNA sequence out of it.
He's got a junkyard lab.
Yep.
Yep, we see him doing analysing the DNA with a computer.
Yep. Okay, so...
And he says, that's my Bruce.
Yep.
That's my boy.
Yep. So now they're doing another test in the lab with Bruce, Betty, and Harper. And some wires are loose or something, and the thing. So I don't think this was deliberately sabotaged by the dinner.
No, it's just an accident. He drops. Reminiscent of the Demon Core accident at Los Alamos,
right,
when various scientists were exposed to a plutonium critical reaction. It's just an accident. Yeah. That Harper drops a screw, he's using a screwdriver or something. It was a screwdriver in the Demon Core accident too. And there's the thing that the computer glitches out, and the gamma raids are going to go off. And Harper's hand is stuck. So Bruce just runs in, much like with Rick Jones. He's trying to get him out. He gets him out. Then the nanomeds are released into the atmosphere. Harper has a gas mask, I suppose, for this emergency, but Bruce, who's run in, doesn't have one. So he's exposed to the nanomeds. Then the gamma sphere, as they call it, is about to go off.
Yes.
And then Bruce throws himself in front of
Yeah.
the I guess the aperture or the gap in the device, so that Harper won't be exposed. We get
But Harper is still kind of exposed, much like Rick Jones would have had to have been exposed. But Bruce is the only one that ends up as the Hulk because
if they were genuine gamma rays, like they probably would. Well, it depends.
I think that let's say they bathed the room, Harper would have been exposed to. I think
I keep talking about the Demon Core accident. In that accident, the guy that made the mistake, I forget the name of the physicist, but he used to wear jeans and like cowboy boots. Okay. He was very careless.
Okay.
He was standing in front of it and copped a lethal dose in like the second.
Yeah.
But he cleverly like immediately slammed down the lid on it.
Yeah.
So he received a lethal dose, but the people standing behind and around him didn't, because he absorbed most of it.
Yeah.
In the split second that the reaction was occurring. I feel like here, kind of like Bruce as well, has gamma rays. They go through like 10 feet of concrete or something. But because it was so brief, Bruce has absorbed most.
Yeah.
Maybe the nanomids too. Maybe they have some sort of dense.
Maybe, but maybe also because he breathed it in. But anyway, the point is his DNA is what. Because now it's similar. He should be dead, but he's not dead. I love this sequence. It's like out of 2001. All sorts of weird imagery. A nuclear...
Danny Elfman's score.
There's like a nuclear...
There's always weird imagery going on.
You go into his eye, and it's like the whole guy. It's all green.
It's constant. It's like Sam Raimi. We're always zooming in people's eyes. Always.
Yes.
Then we're getting like blooms.
Yes.
Colourful blooms. A lot of like images of animals.
Well, that's the
frogs.
That's the second time This first one we get the nuclear explosion.
Right.
But later on he's like dreaming, and he dreams of like jellyfish, but they're like above ground in the desert night sky, and there's
like a mushroom cloud.
And there's an amazing, my favorite shot in the movie, that door which haunts him, where his dad dragged his mother behind the door.
Yeah.
We see that door, and the door opens, and you see the silhouette of the Hulk. This is before he ever turns into the Hulk. It's your first shot of the Hulk in the movie, of this breathing, hulking creature.
Yep.
Just like barely, you can just barely make out this thing.
We don't really know what this door is. We maybe vaguely remember it from a rapid series of images at the start.
Yeah.
But we just see our door, and the door opens, and that's the first time we see the Hulk. This film is drenched with this kind of imagery.
Yes.
Drenched is the word. Redolent of this kind of heavy emotional imagery constantly.
But that scene where the door opens and the Hulk's... And that's that's the fatal door. That's like the part that he cannot dare to... Later on, he goes to the actual door again. He can't open it.
No,
he can't bring himself
to
go through it.
When he first hulks out, the Hulk bashes down that door.
Yes. Yes, that's right. In his mind, that door is being broken by the Hulk coming out.
In this film, it's hard to separate what's reality and what's fantasy some of the time. No, you can tell, but it's constant.
Yes.
The film makes no editorial effort to completely segregate reality and fantasy. Often in scene transitions, we'll get a sequence that's fantastical. And of course, we have constant visual effects, these comic-derived panels within shot, or shots within shots, none of which repeats itself more than once.
Yeah.
There's a great one later on where it's just Nick Nolte's eyes at the top of the screen, I guess. You would call it the screen.
Yeah.
And they stay there as the scene carries on. And then it slowly fades out.
Yes. Yeah.
What? Yeah. So, I mean, you know when you're seeing I guess fantastical imagery and what we're supposed to take at face value, but the fact is that so much of what's going on in the film is fantastical with the editing. You're kind of always on edge.
Yes, that's exactly. You know what world you're in. You're in this kind of mythic space because of this stuff going on. You know what? You just reminded me of Zemeckis' Here, which you talked about 6 months ago, where you've got panels and panels, but here it serves to tell you what the world is and to accept these things that are happening.
Yes, that's right. That's it. That's it. I've even written my notes. Speed Racer and Here, why is this film so much better?
Yeah.
It's because the answer to that question is because here it serves a purpose.
Yeah.
In Speed Racer, it served no purpose. It had nothing to do with cars. It had nothing to do with comics. It was just the Wachowskis indulging themselves. and patting themselves on the back and comparing themselves to Picasso. In here, it didn't do anything.
No, well, Zemeckis was trying to do something that Richard Maguire had figured out works in comics.
Yeah, that's right. It was just a kind of way to more efficiently transition from one, or even efficiently. Eventually, it was just a way to get from one scene to the next.
Exactly.
Here, though, it's you're always like you're on the edge of your seat.
Yes.
Should I be paying attention here?
Yeah.
Is this just a transition, or is this another allegorical sequence?
Yeah. So, Daddy Banner shows up at the hospital.
Yep.
David shows up, and he reveals to Bruce, "I'm your father, Luke."
Yep.
And is like, he's very cryptic. He's like, "You're wondering why you're still alive, and it's what I gave you, etc., etc." Yeah. Bruce doesn't want to believe that this weirdo that just showed up in his
really
room.
dirty and...
Yeah, and I think the dogs are there with him.
He's completely disheveled. Yeah, he's brought his dogs into the hospital too. This is a sterile...
By the way, this hospital
it's on base.
In the Institute.
Yeah, it's on base. Sorry, in the Institute. Sorry, they're not on a base at this point.
Yeah.
For some reason, Eric's not thrilled to see this disheveled bum who's telling him that he's his long-lost father.
So, meanwhile, the bum starts working on some experiments, which I have big questions about later on, but he's working on stuff.
Yep.
Bruce goes back into the lab. He feels like the doctors are doing a clean bill of health, and in fact, he had a bad knee, which is now healed.
Yeah.
And he's like, "What's going on?
Remember my bad knee? Now it's my good knee."
And maybe his dad has put some ideas in his head about his DNA and stuff, and he's like, "I got to do some testing on myself." But while he's doing this, his rage is building up. I don't know if there's anything that's particularly making him angry in this scene, or he's just having trouble containing the Hulk. It's not triggered.
We don't really... It might be his dad showing up that's triggered it.
Yeah.
That encounter with his dad, because it's not till after that, and he...
Yeah. This is the scene where he always seeing weird stuff again. He's seeing images of the desert and the explosion. He's seeing that door being smashed from the other side.
Yep.
And he's feeling like he's getting these headaches. And now, 40 minutes into the movie, but we've had hints of it, as I mentioned at the 30-minute point, we get this transformation. I mean, I was in the cinema... My joy is hard to describe, seeing this huge creature bash around. We don't get a clear look at it initially. The CGI, watching it again 22 years later, I like it. I think
okay.
It's okay. I mean, you can tell it's CG, but it's not any more than current CG. It's just current CG. I feel like this is up to scratch, but there's something cuddly about this Hulk.
Yeah, some people have called him...
He's really top heavy and cute, like a superhero squad version of the Hulk that I really like and appeals to me. I like the design, and often...
He is top heavy, isn't he? People have compared him to Shrek.
Yes. But when he's like running later on and stuff, I just found it looked really good.
He has very large eyes.
Yes.
Yes. Which in visual kind of like that's a way to create sympathy with your character.
Yeah,
if you give your character big eyes.
Very specific with E.T. They had to redesign the eyes.
Disney eyes, right?
Yes, yeah.
So the Mark Ruffalo's Hulk doesn't have large eyes.
That's right.
Which I guess makes him a bit more menacing. This Hulk, massive eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's often like giving you like a simpering look.
Yes. So he goes crazy in the lab, smashing it up.
Yeah, he hulks out, man.
He totally hulks out. But Dad is there, watching him. Hulk sees the dad trying to hide behind a door, kind of, and he stops for a second, like, wait, biologically, like that suppressed memory that Bruce had, Hulk is less suppressed with the Hulk. Hulk kind of recognizes this guy on some level, but then he remembers that this guy did something to his mom, and he freaks out, and Hulk jumps through the roof and runs away.
Yeah.
And goes back home. The next morning, Betty comes looking for Bruce in his apartment. He's there lying in bed with his clothes ripped off except for his shorts.
Yep.
She's like, "What happened to you?" He said, "I had the most vivid dream." By the way, Jennifer Connelly here is playing the same character she played in Beautiful Mind the year before.
Yeah.
Where she's like this wife of a scientist that thinks he's losing his mind or isn't sure about his own sanity.
Yes. More than one reviewer commented on that. as a sort of a bit of a criticism of her performance that, well, I mean, what can you do? But she's basically...
But she's so good in this. But as she's trying to...
The wife sticking by her damaged scientist husband.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what this is. So she's trying to tease out what exactly happened with him. They're not sure. There was something happened at the lab. They're not assuming he's connected to it in any way. How could it be him?
Betty isn't. She just takes him at his word when he says, "No, I wasn't there."
And
I was here dreaming.
He thinks he had a dream. Yeah.
He talks about his dream in this emotionally laden language. He's talking about how it was like rising to the surface of a pool of water. Yeah. He could hear his heartbeat.
Yeah.
He says "boom" 3 times.
Yeah. Boom. But dramatic. Then Dad shows up with a team of men in suits.
He's found Banner's wallet. We saw it falling out.
That's right. His wallet was at the Institute, in the lab.
Why wouldn't it be at the Institute? He works there. It's not exactly the smoking gun you think it is, Thunderbolt Ross.
Yeah.
I remember thinking that. It's like, yeah, okay, you found his wallet at the place where he works?
Yeah.
Fuck me. Yeah, but for Ross, it's good enough. Because Ross doesn't like Bruce.
That's right.
He's investigated him.
Yeah.
And found out about his history.
Yes, and his dad especially. Yeah, he knows about his dad. But it's a guy he didn't like, and he's the one that shut down Dad's experimenting.
Not only that, but he's the one he's the one that had Bruce adopted by the Kranzlers, essentially.
Oh right, yes, that's right.
Which is crazy. And then later on, he ends up dating his daughter, and he doesn't know. It's so Greek tragedy.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yes. I just want to point out one of these guys that shows up at the door with Thunderbolt Ross. There's a very tall black fellow.
Right.
This guy's name is Kevin Grevioux. Sounds like he should be holding 6 lightsabers. He was in The Mask, and he was in Steel.
I know.
He was a co-creator of the Underworld franchise.
I know.
He was the writer of the graphic novel I, Frankenstein, which he made a movie of. And he also has another movie called King of Killers based on a graphic novel by Kevin Grevioux, which does not exist. So he's also one of these shady guys that makes up graphic novels don't exist so he can write in the credits based on the graphic novel. But this is him. So he's getting a a trumpet. He was also a Starfleet security officer on 12 episodes of DS9. So he's going to get a fascinating this week as well.
Fascinating.
Yeah, I think I did mention him when he was on Steel.
Okay.
It's spelled Grievous.
Yeah.
It's pronounced Grevioux.
Well, I looked at some interviews to find the pronunciation. Everybody called him Grievous.
They called him Grievous.
And he has the deepest voice. His voice is unreal.
I think I did mention the I, Frankenstein connection in the Steel episode.
Yeah.
I did not know he was in this movie. I looked at the IMDb page.
He's uncredited, I think.
Right.
But he's on the Wikipedia page. He's listed.
Amazing.
He must be on the IMDb.
I didn't. I would have spotted. It should have leapt out at me.
Right.
I'm disappointed I didn't see that.
Right. Okay, so Thunderbolt is going to interrogate Banner in Banner's house. They don't take him to a base. It seems a bit odd to just interview the guy in his own
It seems like he's just shaking him down, right?
Right, and they kick out Jennifer. Betty. Betty decides to go and see the janitor. She goes to the janitor's house. What was the clue that was...
I can't remember why.
Why did she go over there? I can't remember... Did Bruce say I saw the janitor there? I don't know.
I think maybe Bruce mentioned it to her.
So...
She goes and investigates him, and...
He gives her all this weird talk. He says, I need to cure him. But of what? At this stage, she doesn't know that anything's wrong with Bruce. So him saying stuff like, I need to cure him, doesn't make any sense to her.
Here, there's another... I suppose this is another issue with the movie. David has passed on... The father, Nick Nolte, has passed on to Bruce something bad.
Yeah.
He's traumatized him.
Yeah.
First of all, by murdering his mother in front of him. We established that already, didn't we? But he's also passed on his DNA to him.
Yeah.
Now, the film likes to conflate these two things because it never says anything plainly. Instead, everyone uses this incredibly laden language all the time. I think this is a failure of the movie, actually, to have both literal trauma and allegorical trauma at the same time.
But it's in the comics.
I think you could have... I think the movie should have picked one.
Right.
Because if you were going for allegory, then the DNA would be the stand-in for the trauma.
Okay.
So the trauma of the father... your parents have fucked you up. An allegory for that is like this weird DNA you've inherited from your parents. The same way you inherit so much from your parents. Or leave that out and just have the trauma.
Okay.
But the film has both.
Here's what I wanted to jump way ahead. As good as Nick Nolte is, here's my solution. Have both, then don't have anything else with the dad in the present time in 2003.
Oh, that'd be a shame. You'd miss out on Nick Nolte's incredible scene-chewing.
That's the thing. You'd lose Nick Nolte, but I feel like plot-wise...
Including at one point where he literally chews the scenery.
Yes.
He takes a bite out of an electrical cable.
Yes, that is true. Okay, so he gives her this cryptic talk. She goes away. He gets her scent on some clothing that she was sitting on.
She left a scarf.
She left a scarf, okay.
And he snatched it.
Yeah.
And he gives it to his dogs, who he has since exposed to gamma radiation.
Okay, how did he turn those dogs into Hulk dogs?
He has stolen one of those apparatus that can emit gamma radiation, like that tube.
Okay.
Because we see him doing it on a rat, so we know he has it in his home.
Okay.
So he also has Bruce's DNA.
Okay.
We know because he's stolen his hair. So with Bruce's DNA and the gamma machine, that is enough for him
to make a Hulk creature.
To make Hulk creatures, yeah.
Okay.
He doesn't have. I don't know if he has the nanomeds at this stage, which are a crucial ingredient. So that's a bit of a hole.
Right.
A pretty serious hole.
It might not be. Hulk might be able to heal because of the nanomeds, and the dogs might die because they don't have them.
Fair enough. So
but the movie doesn't say that out loud.
No, it doesn't.
That's headcanon.
So he can make... Yeah, fair enough. So he can be... Well, he is able to kill the dogs, isn't he?
Yes.
And they can't kill him.
Yeah.
So the dogs are Hulk dogs now, which apparently were in the comics.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I've seen it in more than one source.
Okay,
and in
because
fact,
people at the time this movie came out were complaining about the Hulk dogs.
Well, they should have remembered that there's literally hundreds of Hulk comics.
Right.
I definitely have a quote somewhere from Ang Lee himself about the Hulk dogs.
Okay.
This was in Comic Book Resource. Question. I've heard the comic fans will be upset by changes to the story. They asked him this in 2003. Can you talk about your concept for the Hulk and why you decided to make it different? To which Ang Lee replied, I don't think I changed the story. His father was always, one issue they bring the father back. One issue they had the Hulk dogs.
Yep. Okay.
The father always see the baby as a monster because he's a genetic experiment. Okay, a radioactive experiment. That's all from the book. Especially visually. Honestly, I take it from the book.
Yeah. Okay, so he sicks his mutant dogs onto Betty. They're going after Betty. I'm not sure why he did this. He wants the Hulk to emerge.
He did it for two reasons. One, he's cross at Betty for accosting him in his home.
Okay.
That wasn't according to plan.
Okay.
He wanted to be in control. Second of all, he wants Bruce to turn into the Hulk.
Right. Okay. Why does he want that?
He's enamored of the Hulk because the Hulk is... By the end of the film, David has decided that the Hulk is the real Bruce.
Oh, I see. His true personality without the repression.
Yes.
Okay.
Or just because he only values Bruce for his monstrousness.
You really got a good read on this movie. Of stuff that I was missing.
Weren't we going to do a sound for that?
Oh yeah, yeah. There was a segment name for it and everything too. Please explain this movie to me or something. I can't remember. We'll sort that out. I'm really glad you're here to explain it. But he calls Bruce. Bruce is on a cell phone that was between his cushions.
He hid it there. So David hid it there.
David went there in some scene we didn't see.
We know he knows where Bruce lives because of that Halloween scene.
Of course,
yeah.
But we didn't... I was like, where did this phone come from?
Yeah.
It was I thought, is that Betty's phone? Is that Thunderbolt Ross's phone?
No.
Why is David calling him on this phone?
David's just snuck it in there so he can call Bruce at a crucial moment.
Right, and he's like, hey, I sick these dogs on Betty.
Yeah.
So Bruce...
They're unstable.
Bruce...
Very powerful.
So Glenn is there at the house, and he's like, you're an asshole, and they have an argument, but Bruce turns into Hulk right in front of Glenn and knocks him out, and escapes...
because Glenn starts roughing him up.
That's right, and he escapes the security that had been posted outside, and he goes to Betty, but he's totally calm when he's around her. It's Beauty and the Beast style. He's not a Hulk. He doesn't rip her apart or anything.
Yeah.
In fact, it's not until he turns into Bruce the next morning that he chokes her in the way that happened in her dream.
In her dream.
Yeah, untangle that, Freud. Okay, so when he's there, he's very calm, but then the dogs attack. We get a very long sequence where he fights these dogs.
Yeah. Including a mutant poodle.
Yeah, that is weird. Like, it's a weird thing to look at.
It's a lot, the mutant poodle.
But then he turns back into Bruce. This is the one time he doesn't have shorts when he turns back.
No, he's naked, isn't he?
Normally in the comics and every version of Hulk, when he turns back, he's got these ripped shorts, and everybody says, ha ha, how do his shorts still fit? Or how did they fit the Hulk? It's comic book logic, doesn't matter, but this is the one time.
No,
he's like
actually
American Werewolf in London, where he's just like running around nude for a moment here before he chokes Betty.
Good comparison. Incidentally, the dogs evaporate when they die. I suppose for that PG.
Oh, did they evaporate?
That's definitely. Weird. Very definitely.
How weird.
We even, when he tosses the poodle away,
yeah,
we even see it evaporate when it hits the tree, so we know it's dead. It turns into green mist.
Yeah,
and then when he tears one apart, it turns into green mist.
That's right. Yeah, like Blade. That's weird.
Well, it's for that PG.
So we have a chat here the next morning in her cabin. She lives in a cabin in the woods between Bruce and Betty, and they're trying to untangle what's going on with him and his anger and his emotions and how that's affecting...
Yeah.
His emotional damage is affecting him turning into the Hulk.
Here we muddy the waters a little more because Bruce is saying, like, I don't understand why I turn into the Hulk and I get mad.
Yeah.
And Betty says, well, you know, it might be certain kinds of emotional damage can have a physical effect.
Yeah.
She says specifically, and she even says, specifically, you know, like repressed memories.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay. So it's implying here that the nanites are trying to heal emotional damage.
Weird.
Emotional damage. So when he gets sufficiently emotional, he gets heart palpitations or something, and then the nanites activate and turn him into the Hulk, so that he's cured of that damage. Doesn't really add up, especially since he didn't turn into the Hulk when his body was all cured the first time. Remember how his knee got fixed and he woke up in the hospital bed? He didn't need to be the Hulk.
No. You know what? You're right about muddying the waters, because, as I was saying earlier, this can be really simple. The guy has some sort of genetic mutation that causes him that protects him from the Gamma Blast. The Gamma Blast turns him into the Hulk when he's angry. That's enough.
Yeah.
Don't need much more than that.
It's one of the what pisses me off the most about the film, I would say.
Yeah. But she secretly calls her dad, so they show up and they tranquilize him.
Yep.
They take him.
Amazingly, they take him back to the base.
The base, yeah, the base he grew up on.
Yeah.
It's the base that Thunderbolt still works on, I guess.
Who's that over there?
In fact,
is it Freud?
He realizes that he might have known Betty when she was a little girl. They might have...
It's so crazy. He wonders if... Yeah, that's it. She's like 2 years younger than him.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, did I see you then? Did I know you?
Yeah.
It's like, oh my god.
So they take him prisoner.
The whole place is in ruins. I don't understand how Ross is still the commander of this base. Also, he's not a colonel anymore.
He's a general.
He was a colonel when he commanded the base in the 60s or 70s. They do say 30 years have passed.
Yeah.
And I assume it's 2003. So maybe 73?
Oh, hang on. So they did say 66. This has to be...
okay, so if they said 66...
But Dad was in jail for 30 years.
Yeah. If you say... Well, maybe he's been out of jail for a bit. Took him a while to grow his hair out. And, and get that cover identity as a janitor. No, but it's so crazy. It's wild to me that this base still exists. It's in total disrepair.
Yeah.
Or at least the Los Alamos part is. Because this is Los Alamos.
Yeah.
Because it's in the desert.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, it's a completely manufactured, like, town.
Yeah.
With just, like, nothing but desert flats for miles.
And there's no radiation left over? They stayed there after that blast in 66?
Well, what kind of experiments were they doing there? It seemed like they were doing genetic experiments, yet they had a nuclear reactor that he could overload.
Yeah.
I guess there was no residual... It's not a Chernobyl situation?
Okay, here's my question about this. He brings Betty and Bruce back to the base. Bruce is tied up. Betty knows that Janitor Man created the dogs that attacked her.
Yep.
Dad is very protective of his daughter and hates Janitor Man. Knows he's a bad guy from the 60s. Why? And Betty knows where Janitor Man lives. She went to his house. Why doesn't the military go after him?
They do.
They do?
Yeah.
When?
We get a very short scene of them breaking into his house.
Oh. Huh, okay.
I didn't know what I was looking at either.
Oh.
But they go into his home in one scene.
Oh, okay.
And he's left.
Oh, I see. He's cleared out. Okay.
But it's a perfectly legitimate question, and not the last time we asked this question.
But this is another reason I felt like, can't we just leave all the dad stuff out of the movie? Because it's just getting in the way of what's going to be the best sequence in any superhero movie is about to come up.
I hear what you... anytime... Yeah, when the Hulk's hulking out.
Yeah.
It's just like... Nick Nolte's important to the film for the Freudian reasons, right? We have to have the father there so that Bruce can interact with his traumatizing yet estranged, absent, now present father.
Okay, but Nick Nolte goes back to the Institute and he does an experiment on himself.
Yeah, why does he have access to this institute?
Is this after they had raided his house? Or
yes, after.
Oh, okay.
So he goes to the Institute. Now he's got the nanomeds. He huffs nanomeds in a very memorable scene. He puts the nanomeds are kept in kind of like a plastic bag, like you would use to huff an aerosol.
Okay.
You put it. You plug it into a machine. Then Nick Nolte grabs a hose and like shoves it in his mouth and goes.
Yes.
And then jumps in among... He set up a rudimentary gamma sphere of his own.
Yeah.
You remember Bruce trashed the gamma sphere? He like picked it up and threw it.
Yeah, he picked it up and threw it. Okay.
I guess Nick Nolte has come back to this secured site. We know it's secured because Ross has said it's secured. Mm-hmm. He goes back to this secure site, somehow collects all these sensitive, radioactive, machines. just plugs them back in. Mm-hmm. Do they just plug into a regular old PowerPoint? And then he points them all at himself and activates it, and then he becomes the absorbing man.
Yes.
He can touch a thing and absorb it.
Yes. There's actually a cool moment where his hand goes through this metal.
It's like really cool.
This steel girder almost. Yeah. It's really cool, and the sound effects work really well to make it sound.
It looks really cool, like he's dragging his metal hand through a metal girder. It's very kind of it's the opposite of visceral because there's no viscera involved. Yeah. But you feel
it's very tactile. Yeah,
that's the word.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah, it's really well done. But then again, his powers at the end of the movie are so dumb that I was like, did we need all this? Okay, Bruce gets him and Betty go to his old house and he kind of relives what happened in the door. I think this is when he finally remembers how his mother was murdered, how Dad charged out and stabbed Mom. But I don't understand.
Yes, you're on the right track. That comes up. What happens is, first of all, we have Glenn Talbot has seized control of an entire military base somehow.
Yes, I had a question about this too. Atheon somehow takes over. I'm not sure how that
wouldn't happen. So now Ross is out and Talbot is in, and now Talbot has custody of... He says the NSA turned over control to, to Talbot and Atheon. Okay. That wouldn't happen, but whatever. Now Glenn's in charge, and he, of course, wants to monetize Bruce. So he's all fucked up, incidentally, because of the confrontation at Bruce's house.
Yes, he saw the door. Yeah.
He's on crutches, but he's got a cattle prod, and he's shocking Bruce because he wants the Hulk to come out so he can get a sample.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Why can't he just get a sample from untransformed Bruce the way Nick Nolte did?
That's right. Well, he's not as good a scientist as Nick Nolte is.
Fair enough. He very quickly gives up on shocking Bruce and instead then sedates him and puts him in weird isolation chamber, sensory deprivation chamber.
Yeah.
And this is when we get two scenes at once. So Nick Nolte shows up at Betty's house.
Yeah.
She's of course worried to see him because he's the one that sicked the dogs on him. He says, "No, I'm chill now. I'm cool now. If I surrender myself into your father's custody and you contact him for me, I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to go back to jail. I just want to see my son again. All I've ever wanted to do is cure him, etc., etc., etc." And then we kind of get two narrations at once where David tells Betty about how he thought Bruce was a monster. He became obsessed with curing him. He decided he was dangerous. When he was kicked off the project, he realized his chances to cure Bruce had vanished, so he decided to murder him. And while Nick Nolte is telling Betty this story, we are seeing Bruce relive it in the tank as he's being stimulated by
you're right. Yes.
Glenn
Yes.
to relive his most traumatic memories so he will turn into the Hulk.
Yes. And he sees Dad murder Mom, but I'm still not sure quite why he did it. Maybe it was just rage, or...
It seems like it was an accident.
Ah, okay.
But who knows? I don't think Nick Nolte's a reliable narrator.
Yeah. There's moments here where, like, we see the blast and then we get, like, a shot of, like, the cosmos. It's, like, again, very 2001 weird stuff. Yeah. Mom reaches out to the blast like Christina's world, like she's in the desert on her, splayed out.
Yeah, so cool. It is just like Christina's world.
What is going on in this movie? But of course these dum-dums that were at Atheon that thought they could contain the Hulk, of course can't when he hulks out and he smashes through everything and smashes all the guys.
Talbot kills himself. He tries to shoot Hulk with some sort of explosive ordnance.
Yes.
Hulk is not just bulletproof, but he's like Mr. Fantastic. Bullets bounce off him, not just figuratively, but literally.
Right. Yeah.
They are reflected.
Yeah, that's weird. They should be like... They should hurt him and then he should heal is what really should be happening.
Yeah, but instead, and it's made very obvious, the Hulk is rubbery.
Yeah.
I suppose this is another...
Maybe that's part of why he's so cuddly.
Yeah, because he's rubber. Yeah, it makes him a lot less threatening.
Yeah,
because we see him getting shot, and we see divots appear in his flesh, and bullets like springing back out.
Right.
It makes him much less threatening and much more kind of like Gumby.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. But now he escapes into the desert, and now we get
the best scene ever.
Pure Hulk bliss for probably 30 minutes. He's running around super fast. He leaps like the Hulk leaps in the comics where Hulk doesn't fly. He just has such strong legs that he leaps for like a kilometer at a time and just bounces across these desert landscapes. They try to attack him with tanks and guns, and he picks up the tanks and throws them against each other. And
it's so good. Although you'll notice that he never kills anybody.
No, I did notice that.
Everyone always crawls out of the tank after he threw it. Yeah. You threw a tank 100 meters.
Yeah. And it's really, the flying is, we were talking about the CG before, he's like flailing in his arms and legs as he's like in midair. It's glorious. Yeah, I was having so much fun and stuff exploding around him, and he's like angry at these tanks and choppers and...
I don't think there's anything quite this cool in the Ed Norton movie.
No.
And of course, since Ed Norton, Hulk has not had his own movie. He's always just in other people's movies, right?
Well, Ed Norton Hulk had his own.
That's what I mean. After Ed Norton,
Mark Ruffalo hasn't had his own movie.
That's what I mean. Yeah, Mark Ruffalo hasn't had a Hulk movie where he's just doing Hulk stuff the whole time.
No, in fact, they basically turned him into another Drax because they increased his intelligence for a while there. In the Thor movie... Ragnarok, he was basically another Drax. He was like a big dumb oaf. And then by the time of She-Hulk, he was, and maybe Endgame even, he was like...
It was Endgame is when he became, I guess, Honey, I'm Home Hulk.
Yeah.
But we seldomly...
But I think
because he has to share the screen with so many other characters, we don't see him doing...
Yes, but also we've done it here in a way that they're not going to top.
Right. It is pretty cool. Whenever Hulk's fucking shit up, I'm happy.
Yeah, and then he, runs all the way to... Oh, by the way, this had my favorite transition where the screen splits into 3 and the Hulk jumps from one panel into another.
Just like a comic.
Yeah.
It's wild.
That was really comic booky and I really loved it. But although in the comic you would see the Hulk in each panel... Or you'd have lines, but he actually moves through the panels. It was really special.
But it's plain that, it's plain that where Ang Lee is taking visual inspiration from here.
Oh, yeah.
You're saying, look, a comic could look like this, a film could look like this, let's put them together.
Yes, because it's not like, it wouldn't work in a comic, it works on film, the way the motion in those panels works. Mm-hmm. And the way the sound, even the sound instead of word balloons... he's kind of worked all this stuff out. So Hulk eventually, runs to San Francisco. Almost should have been the other way around. Maybe should have started... But anyway...
I'm going to assume they're in the California desert is where this military base is.
Yes, must be, yeah. Because they do in San Francisco where the Institute is. This is home. But then Betty is on a plane, on a chopper, and Hulk sees Betty, and he stops his rampage. He was ripping up the streets...
Yeah.
And he's all sad when he
Crazy.
sees Betty up there. And he stops. He calms down, as he did before. We've established that Betty settles him back down. And he turns back into Bruce.
He has an amazing bit where they go into space,
Yes.
which is done in the Iron Man movie too.
Yes, but it's so good because when he falls down, he starts to go unconscious.
That's what-
And he has you can describe it.
He sees an image of himself in like a bathroom looking in a
Which
fogged
is
mirror.
how we saw Eric Bana. The first time we saw Eric Bana, he was shaving and he
Yes.
looked at his own reflection in his
Yes.
eye and was like, is there something weird about me almost in that moment he was thinking? And here we get a flashback to that, but when he wipes the steam off the mirror.
He's wiping it off with his full hand,
Yeah.
and behind the mirror is Hulk.
Yeah.
Hulk is wiping it off with one finger,
Yeah.
as Banner is wiping it off with his whole hand. There's a beat. Hulk smashes through the mirror, grabs Banner, and says, "Puny human."
Yes. Loved it.
That's it.
By the way, I think that's Ang Lee's voice.
You're right, it is. The Hulk only says 2 lines in the movie.
Okay.
Puny human and take it all.
Oh, right.
And both of them are Ang Lee. And Ang Lee did mocap for the Hulk as well.
Right. Okay.
So when you Google this movie, you will see Ang Lee in the Google synopsis of the actors that appeared in this movie. You will see Ang Lee's
As
face
the Hulk.
right there, credited as the Hulk.
Yeah. So he turns back into Bruce. I love that he's got his shorts on still. He must have Atheon shorts that stretch and contract as necessary.
Yeah.
I loved it. But to me, this should be the end of the movie. We've had a great sequence. Maybe
Then you'd miss out on.
I don't like the way this is. We're at the 2-hour point.
Yeah.
And we had an awesome sequence.
But we have to resolve.
But we have to resolve the dad stuff because it was
dad
there in the
stuff.
first place. What if we
That's what this movie
just take
is.
the dad stuff out
That's
of it?
why it's okay that the Hulk doesn't show up for 40 minutes. So we complained last week about how an hour, like we didn't see the Fantastic Four until 50 minutes in.
Yeah.
That was a big problem because the film wasn't putting in the work to be a character movie,
Yeah.
and yet we didn't get action enough soon enough for it to be an action movie. This film, on the other hand, is the complete opposite.
Yeah.
It is 100% putting in the work
Yes.
with the characterization.
Yes.
We get nothing but characterization.
Yes. And I want to add to that. I'm sorry, I can continue, but Ang Lee really trusts his actors. He goes into extreme close-ups all the time on Eric Bana, on
Yep.
Jennifer Connelly, on Nick Nolte. He's right in there. You can't see. They're like chins and foreheads are cut off. He's so close.
Yep.
He absolutely trusts them to show the emotion he wants in those moments. Anyway, sorry, go on.
I was going to say, you mentioned Chopper earlier, so Ang Lee cast Eric Bana because of Chopper.
Because it's
basically.
Chopper. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
He says it was the casting director that brought
Right.
Eric Bana to his attention. Then he said, "I saw the movie Chopper. I was looking for someone not only looked like Bruce Banner, but could also play the Hulk himself too."
Huh.
That's what.
Okay.
Yeah. He said, looking at Chopper, he said, look, in the comic he's a wimp. Nobody cares. You cannot do that in a motion picture because it's photography, not drawing. So I was looking for a combination, a person that can carry both demeanors, can play the hidden.
Yeah.
Naturally, he doesn't have to play ... He has to look like he has the potential. So looking at Chopper, I had no doubt
Right.
for him.
Right. Okay.
So someone, I guess, who can do both menace and milquetoast.
Okay. So now the army allows David Banner to have this sit down that he requested.
That would
with
never
Bruce.
happen.
Yes, this was driving me crazy. They've got Bruce handcuffed to a chair, and they sit this guy that Thunderbolt hates
Yep.
across from him.
He's in custody.
Why are they putting Bruce in handcuffs? They have seen the Hulk. They know he can break these handcuffs.
This scene there's no point to this scene. Look, you're persuading me. This scene's...
But this is the scene that unpacks all the
Yes.
Freudian stuff
Yes.
that we've been talking about for...
It has to happen so that we can have this unpacking scene. But from a plot point of view, I guess from allegorically, it's very important.
This is the guy that sicked mutant dogs on his daughter.
Yeah.
He's
But-
like, oh yeah, you can have what you want. Sit down.
From like a real world plotting perspective, first of all, why is Bruce even... Why didn't you shoot him in the head? So he's handcuffed in a chair and he's positioned between two, I suppose, dynamos. And
Yeah.
they're going to... As soon as he hulks out, they're going to run power through it and, I guess, evaporate him using high voltage electricity. It's not really
Well,
clear.
if they kill him, it might work because it worked on the dogs.
Yeah. Clearly, he's between two big electrical
Yeah.
things that are going to electrocute him.
Yeah.
Or run a sufficiently high voltage through him that it'll, I guess, reduce him to ash
Yeah.
before his nanites can heal him. Okay, first of all, okay, and he's sitting in the middle of like, it looks like a runway,
Yeah. Yeah.
and there's hundreds of soldiers all around him.
Yeah.
It's like, what is all this in aid of? This is all in aid of because this is the denouement. This is when Dad comes out. These soldiers are like the Greek chorus, and we got the two guys in the middle of the stage.
Yeah.
It's black.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. It is absolutely a stage production.
And that's all we see, like just the two of them talking about it. And this, after the tank fight, is my favourite scene in the movie because Nick Nolte is just going ape shit.
Yeah.
It's everything's there, you know. He's like, he rants and raves about how he wants to see his real son. You know, the Hulk. Let the Hulk out. I want to see, like, I don't want to see you. I don't want to see this pitiful shell. And what else? He goes full megalomania. He talks about how he's going to take over the world. How he and Bruce have the power to sweep away armies, religions, uniforms, everything. He's just, give the man an Oscar. Then Bruce just doesn't want a bar of it. He's just screaming and yelling at his dad. He tells him to go.
Yes.
And then the best thing happens. First, Nick Nolte sits back down in his chair. Then he goes and waves his arms around.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then Bruce, I think, starts to transform. Maybe isn't it this one?
Yeah.
But then is when Nick Nolte literally starts chewing the scenery. He says, "Go, I'll go. You just watch me go." He picks up the cable. He takes a bite out of the insulation. And then he starts chewing on the naked wires. Ross says, "Turn it on."
Right.
They turn it on, and then because he's the absorbing man, he absorbs the electricity.
Yes, but how does his powers work?
That doesn't matter. It does matter.
Look,
There's no reason why nanites, DNA, and gamma radiation...
No.
Plausibly, I get maybe how that would make a big regenerating man.
How does he turn them on and off? Is it by thought, or is it on all the time? Because he touches these cables, his feet are touching the ground.
It's not on all the time, it's under his control.
It's under his control. So when he wants to... Okay, because initially when he got that power, he couldn't control it.
He couldn't control it, but he learns to control it pretty quick, I think it's implied.
Okay.
But he says to Bruce that he's not stable.
Right.
And he needs Bruce to share some of his... What is it? It's not clear.
He wants his hulking ability. He wants his Hulk energy.
He needs Hulk energy from him.
Yeah.
It's not gamma energy specifically.
So maybe he doesn't really care that his son is his true self. He really wants his... Oh. So when he set the dogs on Betty, he wanted Bruce to be his true self. Now he doesn't care about Bruce being his true self. He just wants Hulk energy.
Here we're getting, again, that intertwined allegorical trauma, or allegorical forgiveness and literal forgiveness, you might say. So he needs Bruce to accept him, not just because he's an abusive piece of shit, but also because that acceptance will mean that his life will literally be saved because it will stabilize his superpowers and he'll be able to take over the world.
Okay.
So, no. So, he becomes Electric Man. Bruce becomes the Hulk. They leap up. There's a great sequence which is very memorable where they're flying through the clouds.
Yeah.
And we see them in flashes.
Yeah.
Like lightning flashes.
Yeah.
We see no movement. We just see them frozen.
Yes.
Looks really cool. Then they land next to a lake. Now we have like the set piece battle, I guess. Absorbing Man takes various forms, rocks.
Yeah, but it takes about 20 seconds. Not 20. It's like a minute. This is a very short sequence
compared to the tank fight.
Pretty anticlimactic after the desert stuff.
Well,
by the way, another thing about the desert sequence is that fight with the dogs was at night. This sequence is at night. The desert sequence is during the day. Usually, when you're trying to cover your CG, you set it at night. I was thinking, they're trying to cover up bad CG, but actually the desert sequence was right out in the open. So this was also like a step down for that reason. It's like,
that's fair.
You can't really clearly see what's going on. It's very short. The Absorbing Man's powers are crazy. How is this a conscious thinking being that's just like made of water or made of rocks?
Yeah.
It
doesn't make sense
so
that his powers have the same source as Bruce's, just some animal DNA in him and some nanites and some gamma rays and some megalomania.
Yeah.
It's not personality powers. It just doesn't... The reason behind this is that in an earlier draft, the Absorbing Man was a separate character from father.
Okay.
And one of the screenwriters combined them.
Okay.
Yeah, this went through a lot of drafts.
Right. Sure.
In one of the penultimate or one of the penultimate drafts, there were multiple Hulk baddies, including the leader,
Oh.
Absorbing Man, and a character called Zazax, who's like an
Okay.
electricity guy, who
Okay.
also appears in the film, arguably, when Absorbing Man becomes electricity.
yeah.
I don't think Absorbing Man ever becomes electricity in the comics, right? He mostly just absorbs solid matter.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, this fight's over very quickly, and then it cuts to a year later, and there's a big explosion.
There's this great... Yeah,
Sorry, yeah.
so Bruce trauma dumps on him, essentially.
Yeah.
The trouble is, the longer Bruce fights Absorbing Man, the more stronger Absorbing Man gets because he's absorbing Hulk's Hulk energy, I guess you'd call it. He's even he even says sleazily sort of goes, yes. Whenever Hulk's bear hugging him or whatever. They end up in the water. Absorbing Man makes the water freeze somehow.
Okay.
We get some commentary from the observers with Ross and Betty says, they're draining all the energy from around the place.
Oh, that's how, yeah.
Okay.
He drained the kinetic energy out of it, which caused it to freeze?
I guess.
Okay.
And then Nick Nolte says, sleep, Bruce, and give me all your power. And then we get some more visions where Bruce, he sees himself young, he sees the young Bruce that repressed, he opens his eyes and he says, you want it so bad, take it. And then we get the second Hulk line, take it all!
Yes, and that overloads Absorbing Man.
Absorbing Man becomes a big jellyfish / mushroom cloud.
Yes, which are images we've seen.
Images that have been constant throughout the movie.
Yeah.
And not just that, and it's not clear here whether this is happening truly or whether this is, I don't know, a vision, but the surface of the jellyfish mushroom cloud Absorbing Man, who is now panicking because he was absorbing too much power, is flickering with visions of Edith, the mother, himself as a younger man, and baby Bruce. It's just sort of all flickering all over the thing.
It could be literal, like in T2 when the T-1000 started morphing into all the things that had been earlier in the movie.
He's trying to escape, searching through his memory to find something that'll let him escape from Bruce unloading on him.
Yeah.
There is no escape in memory because you're the bad guy.
Yeah.
Then General Ross launches a gamma bomb at them. So this is not a nuclear bomb. It's specifically a gamma bomb.
Right. Okay, that's it. Yeah.
So I guess this is a comic reference because the gamma bomb is something different from a nuclear and or atomic bomb. And it goes off in the gamma effect.
Yeah.
So we just see green.
Yes.
And Absorbing Man is presumably destroyed.
And Hulk. Because a year later, they're like, Hulk's gone, so he's presumed dead. But Ross has suspicions. He says to Betty, has he called you? As if maybe he's still alive.
It's good. I like Ross and Betty's relationship because it's a mirror of the kind of dysfunctional relationship that Bruce has with his father as well.
Yeah.
Because Ross is also very controlling of Betty too. He says it's protecting, but of course it's ultimately about control.
Yeah.
Hence why he investigates her boyfriend and finds out that it's this demon from the past. I like it. I think ultimately Ross is, even though he's an antagonist, I suppose, his parenting is a lot more benevolent than David's. So we're kind of getting a spectrum.
Yes, that's true.
Which I like. A spectrum of abusive parenthood.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then we see it's in South America, I assume, because people are speaking Spanish. Bruce has become a medical doctor there, distributing medicine. Some toughs show up claiming they're liberating the medicine for the government, for the cause. And Bruce says, don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
Which is a reference to TV show, not to the comics.
Correct.
Yeah.
But great line.
Then we get end credits, which are all done in word balloons.
So cool.
Yeah. And in that font, the Wild Worlds font.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's our movie. Okay, any more trivia that we want to cover?
Be quick, because I see that we're coming up to 2 hours.
Okay.
All right, first let's talk about how much the movie made. Okay, so the budget for the
cost,
The film cost $137 million, so pretty expensive in 2003 dollars. The box office was $245.7.
Okay.
$2.7 million, which makes the film not a
enough.
success.
Yeah.
That's not enough, which is why we didn't get a sequel, among other reasons. Incidentally, it did very well in its opening weekend.
Okay.
So I guess it was marketed effectively and people wanted to see a Hulk movie. It made $62.1 million in its opening weekend, which is
Okay.
almost half of the total money it made.
Yeah.
It then experienced a 70% drop-off in its second weekend, which is enormous, making it the second biggest drop-off of any superhero movie at that point.
Right.
Do you remember what the biggest second weekend drop-off was at all time?
At that point, I don't know what
It was
X3?
it was Steel,
Oh, Steel. Okay.
which held the record as biggest drop-off
Right.
for any movie, superhero movie ever until
Okay.
the Marvels a couple of years ago. But it's so much worse because Steel made like $8 million.
Yeah.
And its opening weekend was less than $1 million.
Yeah.
You know, Hulk went from lost 70% of $62 million in the second week it was out. So why? Because people didn't get this movie. People like people went to see this movie and then word of mouth spread. It's just like, okay, the Hulk appears 40 minutes in, it's fucking weird. You know, Nick Nolte's in it. There's all these images of, like, is this an art house movie? I don't think.
Yeah.
People didn't understand.
Absolutely, I can see the problems people would have with it.
All right, so we'll talk about. We said we discussed the production. So this film was apparently being kicked around as early as 1990.
Okay.
So that is in an interview that appeared in sort of like the early 21st century. Avi Arad and Gail Ann Hurd, who is a famous movie producer.
Terminator again.
She co-wrote Terminator, I believe.
Yeah.
That's right. She was the producer for Terminator. What else? All sorts of things. Give me a moment. She did Punisher Warzone. She was a producer for that.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
The 2004 Punisher movie.
Okay.
Eon Flux.
Okay.
She was later the producer on The Incredible Hulk.
Okay.
Aliens, obviously, with James Cameron.
Yeah.
The TV show The Walking Dead.
Okay.
And as far as, which is based on a comic. And as far as our podcast is concerned, she was a producer on Virus.
Huh. Okay.
So it's not all winners.
Yeah.
Anyway, they became interested in kicking around this movie in about 1990, which Wikipedia says is the same year the final Hulk TV movie starring Lou Ferrigno came out.
Yeah.
But I think far more relevant is the fact that Batman came out the year before.
Right.
So people are looking for that next great big superhero movie.
Yeah.
Universal signed on at some point between 92 and 94. They were able to introduce Universal in it. At that point, a screenwriter called John Turman was brought onto the film to write it. He apparently got the job through a personal relationship he had with another Universal producer.
Okay.
Not one of the ones that worked on the film. This was his first screenplay.
Okay.
He was a fan of the comic.
Okay.
A big fan. He actually brought in his copy of Hulk #1 that was signed by Jack Kirby, apparently to show to the producers and Stan Lee when he met with them. So he would met with approval, and he wrote 10 drafts at this point. This film, like so many films we've covered, went through so many goddamn drafts.
Sure.
In an interview, he said he wrote at least 10 drafts at this point, and he based it on the Tales to Astonish issues that came after the initial 6-issue run of the Hulk comic. In an interview in 2003, he called it Jekyll and Hyde at Los Alamos. This is his initial draft.
Yeah.
He was also interested in Peter David's idea of Banner's father. He said, quote, I tried to work in the Hulk's father. I always felt that the human element of the Hulk is the most interesting element. Asking, what is the source of this guy's pain and anger? Amusingly, at this point, Universal did not care at all about Bruce's father and agreed with you. They thought he should be cut.
I thought it should be at the beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they asked him to take it out, which is funny because all the later drafts had him in it.
Right.
By 1997, though, this guy, John Turman, who is one of the 3 credited screenwriters, was out.
Okay.
He says it broke his heart because it was the first... He's since said he came to terms with the fact that when you write a screenplay, it's not your baby alone.
Yeah.
This is the most collegial... Well, collegial is not quite the word. Collaborative of all the media in which humans produce art, arguably. So he's since reconciled him to that. But at the time, he was very sad because he felt like he owned it. But he said in the interview that he was later cheered up by how much of his stuff made it into the final movie.
We didn't mention it, but during the desert sequence, there's a lull in the middle where he goes and sits with the flowers. He escapes the...
Yeah, lichen, specifically.
Like...
He's like looking at lichen on rocks,
which he's been doing throughout the movie.
Yes, he had. He had lichen in his lab that he would spray water on.
And his mom was spraying it in the garden.
Yes.
So he goes and he sits there and he's finally at peace and he's happy. And I was like, oh yeah, that's the moment. And I wonder if that was part of his draft. You can read his draft online. Okay.
It's one of 3 drafts that is easily accessible through the Wikipedia page. 3 full drafts of the whole script at varying stages of production. Okay, so he was out by 97. At this point, Joe Johnston was attached as the director. He's the guy that directed Rocketeer.
Yeah.
The script went through like a billion more drafts.
Yeah.
Including a draft by Zach Penn, who is the guy that ended up writing The Incredible Hulk 2008.
Huh.
Stuff that in his script made it into the Incredible Hulk 2008. Specifically, a scene where Banner falls from a helicopter and turns into the Hulk, and also a scene where he discovers he can't have sex because he'll become the Hulk.
I remember that. That's the one scene I remember from.
Because he couldn't have sex with Liv Tyler. Yeah. Later on, Johnston dropped out, and then Galen Hurd's husband went at this point from co-producer to director-writer.
Okay.
Presumably because he was married to one of the producers. He worked on a script, which and a bunch of others who are all mentioned on the Wikipedia article. I'll just pull out one name. J.J. Abrams worked on it.
Huh, interesting.
Then Hurd's husband dropped out because of the pressure of all the rewrites, and also because Universal was trying to bring the budget down at this point.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It was getting above $100 million. Yep. They didn't want a first-time director to...
What year around?
This was around...
pre-Spider-Man and X-Men?
This is around... Yeah, pre-Spider-Man and X-Men. This is around 99, 2000.
Yeah.
So Universal put it in quote-unquote turnover.
Yeah.
And
Turn around?
Turn around. Yeah, that's it. And then they didn't like that a first-time director was... possibly helming a movie of worth more than $100 million.
So instead we'll get the guy that directed Sense and Sensibility to make our Incredible Hulk movie?
The guy that directed Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yes, of course, yeah.
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon wins an Oscar. It should have won Best Picture, but it just won, it won Best Foreign Film or whatever.
Interesting that we've seen this co-opting so many times. We saw it, I mean, with Lexi Alexander, for example, or Chloe Zhao she went from Nomadland to, was it Eternals or whatever that
right,
was? It's like, we've got an indie director that wins an Oscar, and now we're going to put them on this corporate movie, and they'll do what we say, and they're just there for the name.
Well, I don't think Ang Lee... I think Ang Lee got to make the picture he wanted to make.
Of course, yes. I think this is the exception.
Ang Lee had clout.
Yes, right.
Like, he'd made a bunch of movies. He'd made Hollywood movies, right? Ice Storm.
That's right.
He'd made Sense and Sensibility. He'd made a Western.
That was after... Oh, yes, he did. He did make a Western with Tobey Maguire.
Yeah.
But it was after... I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, yeah.
I can't remember what it's called either.
That's not considered one of the pantheon of Ang Lee movies.
But he's...
Anyway.
Yeah. At this point, one of the other 3 credited scriptwriters, Michael France, who wrote Fantastic Four, the 2005 one.
Yeah.
Yep. He'd already been attached twice and been fired twice. But now he's back.
Okay.
He wrote a new script, which then was again considered not good enough and was worked on by 2 more people.
Oh, jeez.
A guy called Michael Tolkien and, of more interest to us, David Hayter.
Huh.
Now, David Hayter will be known to fans of film as the guy that wrote X-Men and X2 and the Watchmen movie.
Yes.
But will be known to people sitting at this table as the voice of Solid Snake.
That's another guy with a weird... Much like Kevin Grevioux. You're a Starfleet security officer and you created Underworld? You're the voice of Solid Snake and you're writing X-Men movies? Very weird.
Yeah. All right. So Ang Lee comes on in 2001. He can choose anything at this point.
Okay.
He's riding high because he just made Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, a film that made like $1 gajillion.
Yeah.
They are, like in that interview I quoted earlier, the comic book resource interview, like they ask him, why did you make Hulk? You could have made it. He said, they ask him, you said when you were desperate you can do anything. Why were you so desperate to make Hulk? And he replied, "I'm not desperate. I just like to do it." After the fortunate success of Crouching Tiger, then CBR said, "You could do anything." And he said, "Yeah." And that's what I chose. It's wild. This hidden psychology of, look, it's a comic book like Pulp Fiction with martial arts in China. He's referring to wuxia here, which is very comic booky.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I was just thinking about how them leaping around is a bit like Hulk leaping through the desert.
Yes, absolutely. When they're using their chi powers to lightly leap from branch to branch in the forests. Absolutely. He says, it's a hidden pleasure. It shows a lot of psychology. It's good material for psychodrama. Couldn't agree more. They were good to do all this wonderful visual things. If it can hold to a dramatic content, that's the biggest challenge. This interview has reproduced Ang Lee's broken English exactly.
Okay.
That's the biggest challenge I can think of for the moment. Some of the story elements broke my heart. Hulk, to me, is the new Hidden Dragon for me. An American version of Hidden Dragon.
Wow. But it's interesting that all the drafts, because, as I said in the first sentence of this episode, it's the purest, simplest concept at Marvel. Guy gets angry, turns into a monster. Why is this so hard? It's interesting how much they're struggling with it. Part of it's what Peter David put into it. When he put all that psychological stuff in, the screenwriter's like, okay, we got to incorporate this, and now they're having trouble entangling it. That's
right. If you wanted to tell a Hulk story, you have to engage with the material that Peter David wrote.
Yeah.
And I think one thing the MCU got right is that they just didn't bother with any of it.
Yes. Yeah, right, yeah.
They just left it to us.
Yes. In fact, they kind of did that with Spider-Man as well.
Yeah. With Ed Norton, the Incredible Hulk movie, which is... I think we often forget that is an official MCU movie, The Incredible Hulk 2008, the second MCU movie after Iron Man.
Yeah.
The origin of the Hulk is dealt with in the introductory, the credits.
Yeah.
We just see a montage of him becoming the Hulk.
Yeah.
That's it, nerds!
Yeah.
Now we're going to talk about a guy that becomes green when he's angry.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Incidentally, Edward Norton's character begins in South America, which in my mind tells me that he's the same guy as Eric Bana.
I thought that at the time. I've only seen that movie once, but I did wonder about that.
If I can elaborate a little if I can continue with Ang Lee's quote, they ask him, in what way is Hulk like the American version of Hidden Dragon? He replied, it's the subconsciousness. It's not guarded by our consciousness or behavior or rationale or social code or morality. It's there. It's 4/5 of our being, and we cover it up with the scheme of brain activities. When it has a physical manifestation due to the catalyst of anger, you see the aggression, the true self, the hidden dragon, I kept calling it. That's great material. That's a big movie. Without using a movie star to draw in the first group of audience, to me at that time it was a dream project. Ang Lee didn't like Hader's script.
Okay.
So now we have the final credit brought in, James Schamus. He rewrote it again.
Okay.
At this point, he merged, as I mentioned, Banner's father with the Absorbing Man. Bringing him into the present as a character, which he hadn't been to that point. He'd been a flashback character up to then. So following what you said, so perhaps they should have brought in you as the fourth and final script writer.
Yeah.
He also was the one that brought in the Hulk dogs.
Right. Okay.
So that is the tortuous journey of this film's scripting through its various drafts. It was filmed in 2002, mostly in California, but also some scenes in Arizona. The original composer on the film was Michael Dana, who is a frequent Ang Lee collaborator.
Okay.
However, he was replaced by Danny Elfman because, according to an interview in 2013 in a Canadian newspaper, the suits in charge of director Lee's Hulk in 2003 weren't enamoured with a non-traditional score that featured Japanese taiko, African drumming, and Arabic singing.
It would have been out of place.
I don't know. This film is so crazy.
That is true too.
It might have been
That
a great
is
fit,
also true.
but it was a bridge too far for the suits at Universal, which is fair enough because they certainly gave Ang Lee free reign through a lot of the rest of it. Ang Lee apparently was the one that wanted Lou Ferrigno to do the cameo.
Okay.
Because he was a fan of the TV show.
Well, Lou also cameos in Ed Norton.
Does he?
As a security guard, and he does the voice of Hulk when he says Hulk smash.
Does he?
Yeah, that's Lou Ferrigno.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, Ang Lee didn't read the comics.
Okay.
He only read manga, translated into Chinese growing up.
Okay.
But he did watch the TV show, he said.
Okay.
And liked it.
Okay.
And I wonder, Kamara, if you can guess who wrote the official novelization for this movie.
I can guess, 'cause I've had the answer slipped to me by my co-host at the beginning of the episode. But I did not know that it was Peter Allen David. That is amazing.
That's very cool.
By the way, Peter Allen David also wrote the novelization of Return of Swamp Thing.
Yes, I did know that.
Yes.
I did know that.
Yeah. In which Alan Moore appears as a character.
I didn't know that.
He appears as a guy that's running a motel, and he speaks in that Northampton dialect.
That's crazy. I think I quoted Peter David in the episode we did on Return of Swamp Thing, actually. Okay, I think that's just about everything I have for trivia.
Okay.
The only other thing I might mention is that Eric Bana is also a Star Trek alumnus.
Oh, of course.
Having appeared in J.J. Abrams' noted script doctor on 2003 The Hulk's 2009 Star Trek movie, where he plays Nero, the Romulan antagonist.
I thought of that while I was watching it, and I failed to mention. Okay, we'll give him a fascinating.
Fascinating.
Okay, so shall we do our votes?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, so the Peter David run on Hulk. As I said, it's burned into my memory, especially that Wolverine issue, and rereading them this week, they were just as good. He found ways to take this character in very weird new directions, and you really never knew what was going to happen, and it was funny and beautifully drawn, especially by Dale Keown on his run. And yeah, it's an easy yay for me, and that's about the size of it.
Yeah,
but it's a lot. It's like 12 years worth of comics.
I only read a few.
Yeah.
I mean, you gave me 2 anthologies, and I read most of both of them, even though I only had to read 1 issue out of each, because I found once I started, I couldn't stop.
Yeah.
And I really love them, and I can't, as listeners would be able to tell from the way I gushed over 377, I think it's one of the better comics I've read this year.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah. All right, how about this movie? This is a yay for me. I think there's lots of stuff wrong with it.
Yeah.
Both times I watched it 20 years ago and this week, I was like, wow, that's some weird choices there. The weird comic booky visualizations sometimes work, sometimes don't, but I appreciate that he was experimenting with it. And so, yeah, yay. I think pretty easily.
Coming in, I reckoned I knew how I was going to vote. I even wrote it down in my notes. I was going to vote nay for the film and yay for the adaptation.
Okay.
And which is an uncommon pairing.
Yes.
Because, as you say, there's so much that's off.
Yeah. Yeah.
About the movie.
Yeah.
And a lot of what I love about it, I love because of the choices it's made to adapt.
Right.
A, the comics medium, I suppose, and B, notions and ideas from the comic.
Yeah.
From Peter David's storytelling. I think if you said, I'm going to retell the Hulk as if Thucydides wrote it.
Right.
Oh, sorry, Sophocles.
Yeah.
You're like Sophocles or Euripides wrote it. Then I would think, whoa!
Yeah.
That's the most brilliant thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
What a brilliant fit.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, this is the one. Yeah, if you're gonna do a Greek tragedy of something or Greek version, Greek dramatic version, Hulk is the choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yet, I found over the last hour or so, as I've been talking about the film, I've just been more and more kind of convincing myself that there's so much I like about it.
It's really kooky. Like, it makes such weird choices, but when you told me about the dogs in the comics, I was like, of course. Like, there's so many weird things in this movie. You're like, would that happen in a Hulk comic? Yes, it would, because the Hulk is, as I mentioned at the beginning, the ultimate soap opera. How they just do whatever. Just give him a gamma burst, and now he turns into Banner when he's too angry, etc., etc. So, and as you mentioned about the dogs were actually in the comics, so I don't think I guess I'm dipping in adaptation, but it's just so strange as a movie as well that I appreciated that experimentality of it. Is that a word?
Yeah, it sounds like a word to me.
Okay.
I was happy. I liked the idea of pairing the idiosyncratic film nay adaptation yay votes, but I think despite my reservations, I've come around to film yay. I think it's pretty I think it's pretty solid.
Yeah.
I think it's clever.
Yeah.
I think Nick Nolte is fantastic. I really like any of the action scenes where Hulk is doing stuff are really good.
100%. Yeah.
Especially the fight in the desert with the tanks.
Yeah.
I was a little tuned out whenever Eric Bana and Jennifer Connelly were sharing scenes. It could be a little heavy.
Yeah.
A little dull. But
well, actually, anytime people are trying to talk about stuff in this movie, I was like, "What are they?
Where's
what
the
are they
Hulk?
saying
Bring back
exactly?"
the Hulk.
No, I was just like, "What? What did they mean by that?"
But I don't think this film's reach exceeds its grasp. I think Ang Lee achieved what he set out to do. So I'm going to say yay.
Okay. Adaptation, yeah. So as I just said, it's a yay for me because it is really. I don't think it's outside the bounds of the Hulk comics. It's a pretty good version. We've had lots of versions, and in fact, I mean, if you love the Hulk TV show, that's very far from the comics.
Oh yeah.
So this is like closer than that. It's closer than the cartoon that I loved as a kid. His clothes don't magically reappear. I think it's more fun than any of the MCU versions, for the most part. I think there's a couple of scenes that Ruffalo has that are pretty good.
Yeah, he's alright. But yeah, I mean, MCU's
But I mean, the desert sequence...
It's got everything...
Forgives... Whatever it does... If it does anything wrong, it's forgiven by the desert sequence.
It has better action than an MCU movie.
Yes.
And it has more depth than an MCU movie. And it's shot more interestingly, and it takes more risks. And it's virtually an art house movie.
Yes, agreed.
So, I mean, it's doing better than an MCU film on every count.
Yes, yeah.
For me, same. Adaptation, I think I've made it clear. I love that this film celebrates its comic book origins.
Yes.
At a time when a lot of movies were disguising...
Yes.
The fact that they were based on comic books.
Oh yeah, this one's all in.
This is a film that says, this is a comic book movie.
Yeah.
We're going to put comic book font in the start of this movie that has... The whole way through, we're going to have all of this stuff that's clearly inspired by this.
There's that line in X-Men where Cyclops says... Wolverine says, you expect us to wear these clothes? And Cyclops says, what do you want, yellow spandex?
Yeah, like, fuck you, comics.
Yeah, no, that's not what this movie's about at all. To
refer again to this interview from 2003... They asked Ang Lee, I noticed in your technique you have almost comic book-like panels. Was that an homage to the comics medium? And Ang Lee replied, yeah, of course. He said, also, doing comic books gave me a good excuse to try something I always wanted to try without it being distracting.
Yes.
I think the time is right, especially for kids growing up with today's television cartoons and internet video games. This will be easier for the younger generation. I think on the big screen it's different. Because your eyes don't have the simple grasp of the picture, you have to really direct them. This principle, so he's talking about the way he shot it, the way he can do all these effects that are of comic books but also go beyond the way a comic book would be. He says, the principle is very similar to when you open up a page of a comic book. Your eyes go somewhere.
Yes.
And you choose what you see.
Yes.
Not necessarily like a regular movie viewing experience which a filmmaker edited, mandating you to watch in a certain way. You get a choice. You can go back and forth.
Yeah.
So it's very much like a comic book. It's particularly American comic books, not so much Japanese. They don't do that. Then the interviewer said, it reminded me of Thomas Crown, the original one. To which Ang Lee replied, yeah, the 70s, it was fashionable.
Huh. Well, I don't know where they get the Thomas Crown thing, but there were certain scenes that were like a heist movie where you get somebody going into the vault from two different angles. So maybe that's what the Thomas Crown bit was.
Well, the original Thomas Crown had a lot of this kind of stuff in it. Yeah. And if you'll permit me a final coda, we talked about the circumstances of Peter David's death. Unfortunately, he died in debt, or even of debt. He was not a well man. He was in a great deal of medical debt when he died. He was brilliant and should have been celebrated for his work and rewarded for it, and instead he died in penury. So please use your vote and your activism to support the kind of society that cares for people that need this kind of care, regardless of who they are, genius or not.
Okay, please like, rate, review, subscribe on whatever your platform is. I think Apple Podcasts especially, we're supposed to get reviews on there, they say. Please contact us through the email address in the show notes or DM us through Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, or even leave a comment on YouTube. All those links are in the show notes. And please join our Patreon at patreon.com comic book movie Oblivion. Next week, we are going to look at Rocket Ship from 1938. This is a Flash Gordon movie. It is a condensation of the 1936 serial. It might be called Rocket Ship one word or Rocket Ship two words. I just checked before we started recording. There's a version on YouTube called Rocket Ship two words, and it says 2025, and it was uploaded a month ago. So it's about an hour and 10 minutes. I think it's like the origin story, so we probably won't cover the comics again. I might have a flip through again, listen to what we talked about last time.
Good idea.
But we'll just try to hit that hour and 10 minutes of Rocket Ship, and then eventually we can get to Flash Gordon, which is what we really are trying to get around to, but we have to be respectful about these things and do them in order.
Indeed so.
Banner, melted by gamma rays, turned into the Hulk.